Imagine for a moment that you are holding a small burning coal in the palm of your hand. It glows with a menacing orange light, and its heat is not just a sensation, it is a living presence. It sears your skin, a relentless fire that consumes your attention, and yet you cannot let it go. You hold it because your intention is to throw it at someone else, someone who has wronged you. So you wait, enduring the agony, your fist clenched around this source of pain, believing that its purpose is to be delivered to another. But as the moments stretch into minutes, and minutes into hours, a dreadful realization begins to dawn. The person you wish to harm is not here. They are somewhere else, living their life, perhaps completely unaware of your suffering. The only one being burned, the only one whose hand is turning to ash is you. This burning coal held so tightly in our minds is the nature of resentment. This is the poison of a grudge. We carry these embers from the past, these stories of betrayal and hurt, believing we are keeping a record of injustice, when in reality, we have simply forgotten how to open our hand. This act of holding on is one of the most exhausting states of the human mind, a silent drain on our life force that colors every new sunrise with the smoke of yesterday. It is the invisible anchor that keeps us tethered to a moment that is gone, preventing us from ever truly arriving in the peace of the present. It fuels our anxiety, deepens our stress, and whispers that we are trapped, forever defined by the wounds we have received. But what if there was another way? What if the solution was not to throw the coal harder, but simply to let it drop? This is the path we will explore together. A path that reclaims the word forgiveness, not as an act of weakness or a pardon for the unjustifiable, but as a profound, courageous act of self-liberation. It is the wisdom taught in ancient traditions, a quiet revolution of the heart that says, "My peace is more important than my grievance." This is not a journey to absolve another person. It is a journey to free yourself. It is the art of opening your hand, of letting the burning coal fall to the ground, and finally, beginning to heal. Let us return to that burning coal, held so firmly in the mind's hand. At first, the pain is sharp, an acute agony that screams for attention. It is a foreign object, a violation of our natural state of being. But resentment is a patient poison. Over time, the searing, high-pitched scream of the initial burn fades into a low, throbbing, constant ache. The nerves, overwhelmed, begin to dull their own response, and the pain, though ever present, becomes a part of the landscape of our inner world. We adapt to it. We build our identity around it. We are no longer a person experiencing pain. We become a person in pain. The coal is no longer just something we hold. It feels like a part of us, a grim, smoldering jewel fused to our very skin. This is the first and most deceptive truth about holding on to hatred. We believe we are preserving a weapon, but we are actually nurturing a wound until it becomes a chronic condition. The energy it takes is immense. Think of the inner monologue, the endless courtroom drama that plays out in the theater of your mind. You are the prosecutor, presenting the evidence again and again. You are the judge, delivering the guilty verdict 1,000 times. You are the jury, murmuring in agreement at the sheer injustice of it all. And you are the prisoner, locked in the cell of your own righteousness, unable to leave until the sentence is served by someone else. This internal process is not passive. It is an active, energy-consuming fire. It feeds on your attention, it devours your focus, and it demands constant fuel, which you provide every time you replay the memory, every time you tell the story, every time you fantasize about a confrontation that will likely never happen. This is not the energy of healing or growth. It is the energy of stagnation, a frantic spinning of wheels in the thick mud of the past. This mental and emotional strain is not just a poetic metaphor. It is a physiological reality. Your body does not know the difference between a real, present-moment threat and a threat that is being vividly imagined and relived in your mind. To your nervous system, the story of betrayal is a clear and present danger. When you dwell in resentment, you are effectively holding your body in a perpetual state of emergency, a low-grade, long-term activation of the fight-or-flight response. The glands of your endocrine system, particularly the adrenals, are signaled to release a steady drip, drip, drip of stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline into your bloodstream. In the short term, these chemicals are life-saving, preparing you to face a predator. But over months, and even years, this constant chemical bath begins to corrode your physical well-being from the inside out. Cortisol, the primary stress hormone, is particularly insidious. It disrupts natural sleep cycles, leading to restless nights and exhausted days, where the mind is too tired to be creative, but too agitated to be calm. It interferes with digestion, as the body diverts energy away from rest and digest functions to fuel the non-existent battle. It can lead to high blood pressure as your heart works overtime. Most critically, chronic stress suppresses the immune system. Your body, so busy fighting the phantom tiger of your memory, has fewer resources to fight off actual viruses, bacteria, and cellular abnormalities. We get sick more often. We take longer to heal. We become vulnerable in ways we cannot see, all because we refuse to put down a weapon that is only pointing back at ourselves. We are living proof that one can be physically harmed by a thought, by an emotion, by a memory held too tightly. The psychological effects are just as devastating, creating a prison whose bars are forged from our own thoughts. Resentment acts like a grey filter placed over the lens of perception. The world might offer a day of brilliant sunshine, the taste of a perfect cup of coffee, the genuine smile of a loved one, but the filter of our grievance drains the color from it all. The joy feels muted, distant, because a significant portion of our emotional bandwidth is permanently occupied by the past. We lose the capacity for spontaneous delight. We are present, but not truly there. Our mind has a backlog, a heavy file that it insists on reviewing at every opportunity. This creates a state of deep psychological dissonance, a split between the life we are living and the story we are telling ourselves about our life. This is the breeding ground for anxiety, that constant, humming sense of unease and dread, the feeling that something is wrong, even when everything is right. The wrongness is the unresolved conflict we carry inside. It manifests as depression when the sheer exhaustion of the internal battle becomes too much to bear. The hopelessness that settles in is not about the world itself, but about our perceived inability to ever feel whole again, to ever escape the shadow of that one person, that one event. We are shackled to our own narrative of victimhood, forgetting that we are the authors, and we can, at any time, begin a new chapter. The Buddha spoke of this with profound clarity in the concept of the second arrow. The first arrow is the painful event itself, the hurtful word, the act of betrayal. This arrow flies from the outside world, and its impact is often unavoidable. It wounds us. But the second arrow, he taught, is the one we shoot into ourselves. This is the arrow of rumination, of outrage, of self-pity, of obsessive storytelling. This is our reaction to the first wound. The first arrow causes pain. The second arrow causes suffering. The original event is over. It exists only as a memory. The suffering, however, is happening right now, created and sustained by our own mind. This is the essence of self-inflicted suffering. There is a timeless story that illustrates this with beautiful simplicity. Two monks, one old and one young, were on a long pilgrimage. They came to a river with a strong current. On the bank stood a young woman in fine silk robes, afraid to cross for fear of ruining her clothes and being swept away. Without hesitation, the old monk walked up to her, lifted her onto his back, carried her across the turbulent water, and gently set her down on the other side. She gave a curt nod, without a word of thanks, and hurried on her way. The two monks continued their journey in silence. The young monk, however, was seething. His mind was a whirlwind of judgment. How could his master, a holy man, touch a woman? It was against the rules, and how could she be so ungrateful? He replayed the scene over and over, his indignation growing with every step. He imagined confronting his master. He thought of reporting him to the monastery. Hours passed. The sun began to set. Finally, unable to bear the turmoil any longer, the young monk burst out, "Master, I must ask, why did you do that? The rules forbid us to touch women, and she wasn't even grateful. You carried her across that river. The old monk looked at his young companion. His eyes filled not with guilt, but with a gentle compassion. He smiled softly and said, "I left her by the riverbank hours ago. Are you still carrying her?" This is the question we must all ask ourselves. The event is done. The person is gone. The moment has passed. Are we still carrying them? Are we still allowing their weight to slow our journey, to poison our peace, long after the river has been crossed? Recognizing this burden, feeling its true weight in our body, in our mind, in our spirit, is the first essential and most compassionate step toward healing. Only when we truly understand the cost of holding on do we develop the sincere motivation to finally let go. And this begins by understanding what it truly means to open our hand. Now that we have sat with the true weight of the burning coal, feeling its drain on our life force, we arrive at the most significant obstacle in this entire journey. It is not the other person. It is not the memory itself. It is the word forgiveness. For many of us, this word lands with a thud in our hearts. It feels deeply unfair, like a betrayal of our own pain. It sounds like we are being asked to say that what happened was acceptable, to erase the wrong that was done, to let the person who caused us so much suffering get away with it, free and clear. Our entire being rebels against this idea. It feels like a second violation, this time inflicted by a society that asks us to get over it. Let us be clear. This resistance is not only understandable, it is intelligent. It is based on a fundamental misunderstanding of what forgiveness truly is. The popular definition of forgiveness is perhaps the greatest barrier to ever achieving it. So, before we can even begin to practice it, we must first tear down the false idol. We must redefine the term and reclaim it not as a burden, but as a key. First, let us be explicit about what forgiveness is not. Forgiveness is not condoning. It is not in any way, shape, or form saying that the harmful action was okay. You can forgive someone completely while still holding the firm, unwavering conviction that what they did was wrong, destructive, and unacceptable. It is a radical act of mental sophistication to be able to separate the action which you condemn from the person who you release from your own mind. Think of it this way. Holding on to hatred for someone who acted badly doesn't make their action any more wrong. The action stands on its own, judged by its own merits. Your hatred is a separate event, a reaction that happens inside of you. Forgiveness is choosing to end your reaction, not to reevaluate their action. You are not letting them off the hook. You are taking yourself off the hook of constant, painful reactivity. Second, forgiveness is not forgetting. The phrase "forgive and forget" is one of the most damaging pieces of advice ever conceived. To forget a painful lesson is to render yourself vulnerable to being wounded in the exact same way again. The memory of a deep hurt is like a scar. When the wound is fresh, it is a bloody, agonizing, open mess. The work of resentment is to keep picking at the wound, to keep it infected, to ensure it never heals. The work of forgiveness is to allow the wound to finally close. It will leave a scar. The scar does not hurt anymore, but it is there. It is a part of your topography. It reminds you what happened. It is a source of wisdom. You can touch the scar without wincing. You can remember the event that caused it without being consumed by the fire of the initial pain. Forgiveness is the transformation of a festering wound into a clean, painless scar. The memory remains, but the emotional charge has been neutralized. You remember the lesson, but you release the pain. Third, and this is critically important, forgiveness is not reconciliation. Forgiveness is a solo act. Reconciliation is a duet. Forgiveness happens entirely inside of your own heart and mind. It requires absolutely nothing from the other person. They do not need to apologize. They do not need to be aware of your process. They do not even need to be alive. Reconciliation, on the other hand, requires the willing and safe participation of both parties. It is the act of re-establishing a relationship. You can absolutely forgive someone and simultaneously make the wise and healthy decision to never have them in your life again. In fact, true forgiveness often provides the clarity and calm needed to set the firmest, most effective boundaries. You are no longer acting out of anger or a desire for revenge. You are acting out of a deep sense of self-preservation and peace. You can wish them well from a great distance, while you change the locks on your door. One is an internal release, the other is an external boundary. They are not mutually exclusive. Finally, forgiveness is not a sign of weakness. It is the ultimate expression of strength. What is weakness? Weakness is allowing someone from your past to dictate your emotional state in the present. Weakness is giving a person who may not think of you at all the power to ruin your day, to steal your sleep, to poison your relationships. What is strength? Strength is the courage to look your own pain in the eye, to feel it fully, and to make a conscious decision that you will no longer be its servant. Strength is the act of revoking that power from the other person, not by fighting them, but by making their influence irrelevant to your inner peace. It is the declaration of your own emotional sovereignty. So, if forgiveness is none of those things, what is it? Simply put, forgiveness is the gift of peace, and it is a gift that you give to yourself. The word itself can be broken down. Forgiving. It is an act of giving for your own sake. It is the moment you decide to cut the invisible energetic cord that binds you to the person who hurt you. As long as you are consumed by hatred and resentment, you are bound to them. You are in a toxic relationship with your memory of them. Your thoughts, your precious life energy, your focus are all flowing away from you and towards them. Forgiveness is the act of snipping that cord. It is the decision to stop the flow. It is saying, I am reclaiming my energy. I am bringing my attention back home, to myself, to my own healing, to my own life, to this present moment. It is not about justice, which is an external process of accountability. Justice can be served in a courtroom or through worldly consequences. Forgiveness is an internal process of liberation. Let the universe handle their karma, their cause and effect. Your only job is to handle yours. Imagine a man who has been unjustly thrown into a prison cell. For years, he is consumed with hatred for his captor. He finds a sharp stone, and he spends all his waking hours, day after day, scratching his captor's name into the stone wall of his cell. He carves it over and over, his fingers bleeding, his mind focused on this one act of defiance and remembrance. He believes this is his purpose, to bear witness to the injustice, to etch it into the very stone of his prison. His hatred for the captor is the only thing that keeps him going. One day, exhausted, he drops the stone. In the silence, for the first time, he hears the faint sound of laughter and music from outside. Curiosity, an emotion he has not felt in years, stirs within him. He gets up, walks to the heavy wooden door of his cell. The door he always assumed was locked and barred, and he touches it. The door swings open. It was never locked. He stands on the threshold, blinking in the bright sunlight, realizing that he was the only one keeping himself in that dark room. His obsession with the injustice, his dedication to carving the name on the wall, was the very thing that prevented him from checking if the door was open. Forgiveness is not about condoning the captor. It is about realizing the door is unlocked. It is about dropping the stone, walking out of the dark room, and stepping into the sunlight of your own life, leaving the name on the wall behind forever. To begin the profound work of opening your hand, you must first understand the ground upon which you stand. This ground is your own mind. The mind is not a fixed, solid thing. It is a space. Imagine it as a plot of land, a garden that has been given to you and you alone to cultivate. The soil of this garden is your consciousness, rich with potential, capable of growing the most exquisite flowers, the most nourishing fruits, or the most tangled, thorny weeds. Every single thing you experience is a seed that falls into this garden. A kind word from a friend is a seed of a rose. A moment of quiet awe watching a sunset is the seed of a lily. A burst of laughter is the seed of a sunflower. These seeds, when tended, grow into the beautiful experiences of joy, connection, and peace. But other seeds fall into this garden too. A critical remark, a moment of fear, a memory of loss. These are also seeds. And the seed of a grievance, the memory of a deep hurt, is one of the most powerful and invasive seeds of all. Resentment is not a simple weed. It is like Japanese knotweed, or the kudzu vine of the American South. It is relentless. When its seed lands in the soil of the mind, it does not wait politely for its turn. It sprouts with an aggressive energy, sending roots deep into the subconscious, anchoring itself to your most vulnerable beliefs about yourself and the world. From this root, it sends out thick, sprawling vines of rumination, the endless loop of the story of what happened. These vines creep across the landscape of your mind, wrapping themselves around everything they touch. They choke the tender sprouts of joy. They block the sunlight from the blossoms of creativity. Soon, the entire garden is covered in the monotonous green of this single, obsessive story. The vibrant diversity of your inner world is lost, replaced by a monoculture of grievance. And the most insidious part of this weed is that it feels righteous. We believe we are tending a memorial to justice, but we are actually cultivating a thicket so dense that no new light can get in. So the first question is not, how do I rip out the weed? Because as any gardener knows, pulling an invasive weed aggressively often just spreads its seeds and breaks its roots, allowing it to grow back even stronger. The first question is, how do I become a wise gardener? The single most important tool of a wise gardener is gentle, patient, non-judgmental awareness. In the Buddhist tradition, this tool has a name, mindfulness. For now, let us set aside any mystical ideas about this word and see it for what it is. The simple, practical skill of paying attention to what is happening as it is happening, without criticism. A wise gardener does not scream at the weeds. He does not berate himself for their presence. He simply walks through his garden and observes. He notes, here is a patch of crabgrass, and here a thistle has sprouted. The soil here seems a bit dry. These roses could use more sun. He sees clearly, and because he sees clearly, he can act wisely. Mindfulness is the act of walking through the garden of your mind with this same quality of clear, calm attention. It is the ability to notice the seeds of thought and emotion as they sprout, without immediately being entangled by them. You can try this right now. Close your eyes for a moment and allow the memory of your grievance to appear. Don't force it. Just let the thought, the image, the feeling arise. Now watch what the mind does. It will likely not stop at just one thought. That first thought is the seed. Then the mind begins to water it. It adds a second thought. I can't believe they had the nerve to do that. That is a drop of water. It adds a feeling, a tightening in your chest or a heat in your face. That is another drop of water. It adds a memory of something else they did, another piece of evidence. More water. You can feel the weed of anger growing stronger, taller, more powerful with each drop. Now, the practice of mindfulness is simply to notice this process. Can you see the first thought seed and choose not to add the second one? Can you just label it gently in your mind? This is the story, or this is anger, or this is a memory. No judgment, no need to push it away. You just name it, you see it for what it is, a mental event, a sprouting in the garden. In that moment of seeing, you create a space. In that space is your freedom. You realize the thoughts are not you, the anger is not you, they are events happening within you. You are not the storm cloud. You are the vast, open sky in which the cloud appears. The sky is not afraid of the cloud. The sky is not damaged by the lightning. It simply holds the weather, knowing that all weather, no matter how violent, is temporary. This reveals a profound truth about the garden of your mind. Everything in it is impermanent. No emotion, no thought, no state of mind is forever. The weeds of resentment feel so permanent only because we water them every single day, with our attention, with our stories, with our outrage. If we stop watering them, they will, according to their own nature, eventually wither. This is not a passive process. It is a deeply wise and active one. It brings us to the story of two farmers. Both farmers had fields overrun with weeds. The first farmer, seeing the weeds, was filled with rage. He spent his days under the hot sun, furiously ripping the weeds out, cursing them, fighting them. He was exhausted, angry, and his field remained a battleground. Every time he pulled a weed, he shook its seeds loose, and the next week, new weeds appeared. The second farmer, the wise farmer, saw the same weeds, and he acknowledged them, but he did not make them the focus of his energy. Instead, he turned his attention to what he wanted to grow. With great care, He planted seeds of corn in long, neat rows. He watered the corn, he nurtured it, he protected the young shoots. The weeds were still there, but he did not fight them. He just kept feeding and supporting the corn. And as the corn grew, it became tall and strong, and its large leaves created a thick green canopy over the field. This canopy blocked the sunlight from the weeds below. Deprived of the light they needed to live, the weeds naturally began to wither and die, their roots turning to dust in the soil. The farmer overcame the weeds not by attacking them, but by cultivating something better with such dedication that it left no room for the weeds to survive. This is the path of the mindful heart. We do not overcome hatred by endlessly analyzing the hatred or fighting the person we hate. We overcome hatred by systematically, patiently, and relentlessly cultivating its opposites, the wholesome seeds of kindness, compassion, and peace. We focus our precious energy on growing the corn, not on cursing the weeds. Now that we have this essential tool of mindfulness and this wise strategy of cultivation, we can begin to look deeper. A truly skilled gardener understands the fundamental nature of his soil and the climate he lives in. To understand our inner world, we must now look at the fundamental nature of these weeds of discontent. Where do they truly come from? This question leads us to the very heart of the Buddha's teaching, the nature of suffering itself. Now that you have learned to be the gardener of your mind, equipped with the tool of mindfulness and the strategy of cultivating the good, we can venture deeper into the nature of the soil itself. A wise gardener does not just observe the surface. They seek to understand the fundamental conditions, the climate, the very laws of nature that govern their plot of land. To truly liberate ourselves from the weed of resentment, we must understand the fundamental condition of the mind in which it grows. This brings us to the very foundation of the path that the Buddha laid out over 2.5 millennia ago. After his own profound awakening, his first teaching was not a set of commandments or a complex metaphysical theory. It was a simple, practical, and diagnostic teaching, much like that of a master physician. It is known as the Four Noble Truths, and the first truth is the most direct, the most courageous, and often the most misunderstood. The first noble truth is the truth of dukkha. The ancient Pali word dukkha is often translated into English simply as suffering. But this translation is incomplete and can make the teaching sound pessimistic or grim. It is anything but. It is a statement of radical honesty, the necessary first step before any healing can truly begin. Dukkha is not just about the big, obvious pains of life like sickness, loss, or old age. The Buddha pointed to at least 3 layers of this experience. The first is indeed the suffering of obvious pain, the physical and emotional agony that no human life can escape. But the second layer is more subtle. It is the dukkha of change. This is the stress and anxiety that comes from the fact that even happy moments do not last. A wonderful vacation ends, and we feel a pang of sadness. A joyful gathering with friends concludes, and the quiet house feels empty. This is the friction of our desire for permanence rubbing against the unyielding reality of impermanence. The third layer, and perhaps the most profound for our purposes, is the dukkha of conditioned existence. This is the pervasive background hum of unsatisfactoriness that permeates so much of our lives. It is a sense of something being vaguely off, a restlessness, a feeling of being incomplete. The ancient teachers compared it to a potter's wheel that is just slightly off-center. As it spins, even on a perfectly smooth surface, it produces a constant, subtle, jarring vibration. This is dukkha. It is the baseline anxiety, the quiet existential ache, the feeling that our happiness is fragile and always just out of reach. When we look at the state of holding a grudge through this lens, we see that it is a perfect and potent manifestation of dukkha in all its forms. The initial hurt, the betrayal, was an experience of the first kind of dukkha, the obvious pain. But the resentment that follows, the act of holding on, is where the more subtle forms take root and strangle our peace. Our refusal to accept that the past is over is a perfect example of the dukkha of change. We are fighting with impermanence itself, demanding that a moment which is gone should have been different, an impossible and exhausting struggle. And most profoundly, the state of resentment is the very embodiment of that third form of dukkha. It is the off-kilter wheel. It is the constant, jarring vibration that disrupts every other aspect of our inner life. When we are holding onto a grievance, we are living in a state of profound non-peace, of pervasive unsatisfactoriness. The thought, "I cannot be truly happy until this is resolved," is the anthem of dukkha. So, the first noble truth is not a pessimistic declaration that life is miserable. It is a compassionate diagnosis. It is the wise physician gently pointing to the fever and saying, "Here, this is the condition. Let us not pretend it isn't here. Let us look at it clearly, without fear, because only by acknowledging the sickness can we ever hope to find the cure." This is an invitation to look at your own resentment, not with judgment, but with diagnostic curiosity. Can you feel that background hum of discontent, that subtle vibration of a mind at war with its own past, that feeling of being fundamentally unsettled? That, right there, is dukkha, and seeing it is not a cause for despair. It is a cause for hope, because it is the first step on the path to freedom. There is a story from the time of the Buddha that illustrates the healing power of this truth with heartbreaking beauty. A young woman named Kisa Gotami lived in a state of perfect happiness, for she had a husband she loved and a beautiful baby son, her first and only child. But one day, the child fell ill and died. Kisa Gotami was utterly shattered. Her mind, unable to accept the reality of this loss, broke. She refused to believe her son was dead. Clutching his small, lifeless body, she went from house to house in her village, begging for medicine that could bring him back. Some people mocked her, others looked away in pity, but no one could help. Finally, a wise man saw her profound suffering and suggested she go see the Buddha. She ran to him, laid her son at his feet, and pleaded, "Teacher, can you give me the medicine to cure my boy?" The Buddha looked at her with boundless compassion. He did not dismiss her delusion. He met her where she was. "Yes," he said, "I can make the medicine. But to do so, I need one special ingredient. I need you to bring me a single mustard seed from a house in this village where no one has ever died." Hope surged in her heart. A single mustard seed. That was easy. She immediately set off. At the first house, she knocked and asked, "I need a mustard seed for a special medicine from the teacher. Have you any?" "Of course," the woman inside said. "Please, take all you want." As the woman handed her the seeds, Kisa Gotami remembered the Buddha's condition. "One more thing," she asked. "Has anyone in this house, a parent, a child, a spouse, a servant, ever died?" The woman's face fell. "Oh, my lady," she said softly, "the living are few, but the dead are many. My husband died just last year." With a heavy heart, Kisa Gotami returned the seeds and went to the next house. The same thing happened. "We have plenty of seeds," the owner said, "but our parents passed away in this very room." She went to a third house and a fourth, and on through the entire village. Every door opened to a story of loss. Every family had known the sorrow of death. As the day wore on and the sun began to set, the truth began to slowly, gently dawn in her mind. Her sorrow, which she thought was uniquely hers, was in fact the universal sorrow of all humanity. She was not alone in her grief. Death was not a punishment visited upon her, but a law of existence woven into the fabric of life itself. She looked down at the cold body of her son, and for the first time, she accepted that he was gone. She took him to the charnel ground for cremation, and as she watched the flames, she said to herself, "This is not just the law for my son, it is the law for everyone." In that moment of profound acceptance of the first noble truth, her healing began. The Buddha did not perform a miracle to erase her pain. He guided her with wisdom and compassion to see the truth of reality for herself. Our resentments are our own small deaths, the death of a hope, the death of trust, the death of a relationship. And like Kisa Gotami, we run from house to house in our minds, demanding that reality be different. The first step to healing is to stop running and to acknowledge the truth of what is. The condition has been diagnosed, and now, a mind that truly seeks freedom must ask the next, most logical question. the question the Buddha addressed with the second noble truth. If this is the sickness, what is its cause? We have stood with courage and looked upon the first noble truth. We have acknowledged the condition of dukkha, that pervasive unsatisfactoriness, that subtle, jarring vibration of a life lived in resistance to reality. We have felt it in the chronic ache of our own resentment. A diagnosis, no matter how accurate, is incomplete without an understanding of the cause. To simply know that we have a fever is not enough. The wise physician must ask, what is the source of this fever? This inquiry brings us to the second noble truth, the truth of samudaya, the origin of suffering, and here lies the great hope at the heart of this path. For if our suffering has a cause, then it is not a random, meaningless affliction. It is not our permanent fate. It is a conditioned phenomenon, and if we can understand its cause, we can remove it. The fever is not who we are. It is something we have, and therefore, it is something we can heal. The Buddha identified the root cause of dukkha with a single, powerful word, tanha. This Pali word is often translated as craving or desire, but its meaning is closer to thirst. It is not a gentle wishing for something. It is a desperate, driving, life or death thirst. It is the insatiable quality of the mind that is always seeking something outside of itself to feel complete, to feel secure, to quench a burning that can never truly be extinguished from the outside. This is the engine that drives the off-kilter wheel of dukkha, and when we are trapped in resentment, this engine of tanha is running at full throttle. We can see this thirst manifesting in three distinct ways. First, there is the thirst for pleasant experiences. This is the craving for things that feel good to our senses and our ego. In the context of a grievance, this is the subtle, almost addictive pleasure we get from our own righteous indignation. It is the craving to tell the story again, to receive sympathy, to have our victimhood validated. It is the craving to fantasize about revenge, to imagine a scenario where the other person admits they were wrong and we are vindicated. Each time we indulge in these mental movies, we get a small hit of satisfaction, a fleeting sense of power that only reinforces the craving and makes the underlying thirst even stronger. We become addicted to the drama of our own pain because the righteousness feels for a moment like pleasure. Second, there is the thirst for existence, the thirst for becoming. This is a deeper, more profound clinging. It is the craving for our story, our identity as the one who was wronged, to be solid, real, and permanent. We cling to this narrative because, in a strange way, it gives us a sense of self. It simplifies the world into a clear drama of good versus evil, hero versus villain, me versus them. To let go of the grievance can feel terrifying because it feels like we are letting go of a part of who we are. We have invested so much time and energy into building this identity as the wounded party that its dissolution feels like a kind of death. So we cling to it, we defend it, we crave for this painful identity to continue existing because the alternative, the vast, open space of an undefined self, feels too precarious. Third, and paradoxically, there is the thirst for non-existence. This is the aversion, the desperate craving to get rid of the painful feelings. It is the voice in our head that screams, "I can't stand this feeling anymore," or "I wish this had never happened." We are desperately trying to annihilate the reality of our own experience. This pushing away, this aversion, feels like the opposite of clinging, but it is just the other side of the same coin. Both are born from a violent non-acceptance of what is. Whether we are clinging to our story or desperately trying to push away our pain, we are engaged in a frantic struggle with reality. We are demanding that the world conform to our desires. This desperate thirst, this tanha in all its forms, is the direct cause of our suffering. The original event is not what is causing your pain today. The event is over. It is a ghost. What is causing the pain right now, in this present moment, is the mind's own thirst, its own clinging to a past that is gone and its own aversion to a feeling that is here. This is the profound and liberating insight of the parable of the second arrow. The Buddha said that an ordinary, untrained person in this world, when struck by the first arrow of physical or emotional pain, experiences suffering. This first arrow is the hurtful word, the act of betrayal, the unavoidable losses of life. It strikes, and there is pain. This is inevitable. But that same person, because they are untrained in wisdom, does not stop there. They immediately become agitated. They grieve, they lament, they beat their chest and cry, "Why me? This is terrible. How could this happen?" They obsess over who shot the arrow and why. In doing so, they pick up a second arrow and they shoot it into themselves. This second arrow is the mental suffering, the rumination, the self-pity, the outrage, the storytelling. The first arrow was painful. The second arrow is torturous. It multiplies the suffering tenfold. Now, a wise person, the Buddha said, when struck by that same first arrow, also feels the pain. They do not deny it, but they stop there. They recognize a painful feeling has arisen. They do not add the story. They do not generate outrage. They do not pick up and fire the second arrow. Therefore, they experience the pain of one arrow, not the compounded suffering of two. Your original wound was the first arrow. It came from the outside. Your resentment, your bitterness, your endless replaying of the event, your fantasies of revenge, your ruined moments in the present. This is the second arrow. And the most important truth is this: you are the one holding the bow. Every time you indulge the story, every time you feed the grievance, you are pulling back the string and letting another arrow fly into your own heart. This is not to blame you, it is to empower you. You cannot control the first arrows of life, they are the rain that falls on everyone. But the second arrow is entirely within your sphere of influence. The entire practice of forgiveness is learning how to put down the bow. It is the conscious decision to stop shooting yourself with the arrows of your own mind. We see now the progression of this profound diagnosis. The sickness is dukkha, this pervasive state of non-peace. The cause of the sickness is tanha, the thirst and clinging of the mind, which manifests as the shooting of the second arrow. So the wise physician, understanding the cause, must now ask an even deeper question. What is it that poisons the mind and gives rise to this destructive thirst in the first place? What are the toxic agents that fuel this entire painful process? This leads us to our next investigation, into the very roots of ignorance, the three fundamental poisons of the mind. We have journeyed to a place of profound clarity. We have seen that our suffering, our dukkha, is not a random affliction, but a condition with a specific cause. The cause is tanha, the relentless thirst and clinging of a mind that is never at peace. This thirst leads us to shoot the second arrow into ourselves, compounding our pain. Now, we must ask the final diagnostic question. If our thirst is the immediate cause, what is the underlying disease that gives rise to such a thirst? What is the source of the poison? The Buddha's teaching penetrates to the very root of our dysfunction, identifying three fundamental toxins, three core energies that contaminate the mind and lead to all forms of suffering. These are not external demons, they are patterns of mind, and they are known as the three poisons, or the three unwholesome roots. They are often depicted as three creatures at the hub of the wheel of life: a rooster, a snake, and a pig, each biting the tail of the one before it, keeping the wheel of suffering in perpetual motion. These are the fires that fuel our discontent. The first poison is lobha, which can be translated as greed, lust, or attachment. It is the energy of pulling toward, the clenched fist that says, "I want, I need, this is mine." It is the desire to possess, to control, to consume. It is the force that draws us towards pleasant sights, sounds, feelings, and ideas, and makes us cling to them, terrified of their inevitable passing. The second poison is dvesha, or dosa. This is aversion, hatred, anger, and ill will. It is the equal and opposite energy to greed. It is the violent pushing away, the open hand that shoves and rejects. It is the force that says, "I don't want, get away from me. I hate this." It is the fire that seeks to diminish or destroy anything that threatens our security or frustrates our desires. The third and most fundamental poison is moha. This is delusion or ignorance. It is not a lack of factual information. It is a profound blindness to the true nature of reality. It is the fog that prevents us from seeing things as they truly are. from understanding impermanence, interconnectedness, and the true cause of our own suffering. Moha is the dark, swampy ground from which the toxic plants of greed and hatred grow. When we are caught in the grip of resentment, we are living in the very heart of the second fire, the fire of hatred, of dvesha. It is the primary energy of a grudge. It is a hot, acrid, consuming fire. You can feel its heat in the flush of your skin, its tension in the clenching of your jaw, its suffocating smoke in the tightness of your chest. Its purpose is to attack, to devalue, to destroy. But this fire of hatred does not burn in isolation. It is actively and constantly stoked by the other two poisons, working in a toxic synergy. The hatred is fueled, first and foremost, by its frustrated twin, greed. Your resentment is a direct measure of a thwarted attachment. You were attached to an idea of how someone should have behaved. You were greedy for a certain outcome. You were clinging to an expectation of loyalty, respect, or love. When that object of your attachment was taken from you or violated, the pulling energy of greed instantly flipped into the pushing energy of hatred. Your anger is the scream of a desire that was denied. Furthermore, you are attached to the idea of your own justice, greedy for a particular form of revenge or apology that will satisfy your ego. And all of this is allowed to happen because of the pervasive fog of the third poison, delusion. Moha is the great enabler. It is the ignorance that convinces us that holding this hot coal is a sensible strategy. We are deluded into thinking that our hatred is a weapon that harms the other person. But in truth, as we have seen, it is a poison that we drink ourselves, hoping the other person will die. We are the only ones being consumed by the flames. We are deluded into seeing the other person as a two-dimensional villain, a solid, unchanging monster whose entire essence is their transgression against us. We are blind to the reality that they are almost certainly a complex and suffering human being, acting out of their own toxic soup of greed, hatred, and delusion. Their harmful action was not born from a place of peace and wisdom. It was born from their own dukkha. And most profoundly, we are deluded about ourselves, clinging to a fixed identity as the wronged party, blind to the fact that our true nature is not this static, wounded self, but the vast, open awareness in which these painful stories arise and pass away. To heal, then, is to systematically extinguish these fires. This is the heart of the path. We do not fight fire with more fire. We fight fire with water. The water that extinguishes the fire of hatred is compassion. The water that extinguishes the fire of greed and attachment is generosity and letting go. And the water that dispels the fog of delusion is wisdom, the clear seeing of reality as it is. Forgiveness, in its deepest sense, is this application of wisdom. It is the courageous act of turning on the lights in a dark room, dispelling the delusion that allows the monsters of greed and hatred to thrive. Imagine a man who lives in a beautiful house, a house he has built and cherished his entire life. One night, he is awakened by the acrid smell of smoke. He opens his eyes to an orange glow. His house is on fire. Panic gives way to a surge of burning rage. Through the smoke, he thinks he sees the silhouette of a person running away. The arsonist. His family is screaming at him from the lawn. "Come on, get out! The house is collapsing!" But he cannot hear them. He is consumed by a single burning thought. I must find the one who did this. Instead of running out the front door to safety, he plunges deeper into the burning structure. He ignores the cracking timbers above his head and the flames licking at his feet. His only mission is to find the arsonist, to enact his justice, to satisfy his rage. The house, of course, is your life. It is your mind, your body, your capacity for peace and joy. The fire is the suffering created by the three poisons, and the arsonist is the person who committed the original transgression. Forgiveness is the simple, sane recognition that when your own house is on fire, your first and only priority is to get out. It is the wisdom to understand that you can think about the arsonist later, from a position of safety on the cool green grass outside. To stay in the burning building, obsessed with blame, is a form of madness. You will burn to death right alongside your own righteousness. The first act of wisdom is to save yourself. The choice is stark. Either we are consumed by the fire, or we learn to walk out of it. And to walk out of it effectively, we must understand the very laws of cause and effect that govern our actions within this burning house. This requires a clear and unflinching look at the natural law of karma. We have journeyed into the very engine room of our suffering, witnessing the three fires of greed, hatred, and delusion as they consume our peace. We have seen how our obsession with the person who wronged us, our fixation on the arsonist while our own house burns, is a form of madness. This realization naturally brings us to a question of justice, a question that is often framed through the lens of a powerful and widely misunderstood concept, the concept of karma. In the Western world, the word karma is often thrown around casually, equated with cosmic revenge, a supernatural scoreboard in the sky that ensures everyone eventually gets what they deserve. This understanding, while satisfying to our sense of grievance, is a shallow caricature of one of the most profound and empowering natural laws ever described. To truly heal, we must strip away the superstition and understand the elegant psychological truth of karma. The word karma, in its original language, simply means action. The law of karma is therefore the law of action, the universal principle of cause and effect. It is not administered by any deity. It is not a system of reward and punishment. It is as impersonal and reliable as the law of gravity. Gravity does not punish you for stepping off a cliff. It simply operates. The stepping is the cause. The falling is the effect. So it is with karma. It is the law of agriculture for the mind. If you plant a seed of anger, you will not harvest a fruit of peace. If you plant a seed of kindness, you will not harvest a fruit of misery. The result is contained within the nature of the action itself. And the most critical element that determines the nature of the seed is the intention behind the action. The Buddha said that intention, cetana, is karma. A thought motivated by a desire to harm is a poisonous seed. A thought motivated by a desire to understand and heal is a wholesome seed. Herein lies the first great freedom that this correct understanding of karma offers us. The person who harmed you, through their unskillful and hurtful action, planted a poisonous seed. Their action was motivated by their own inner fire, their own greed, their own pain, their own delusion. By the very nature of this law, that seed will bear its own bitter fruit in their life, in their mind, in their heart. This is not a matter of if, but of when and how. A mind that operates from a place of harm creates its own prison. It experiences the world through a filter of suspicion and fear. It is cut off from genuine connection and trust. Their suffering is the natural, inevitable consequence of their own actions. We do not need to supervise this process. We do not need to be the karma police. We do not need to waste our precious life energy hoping they suffer. The universe is a perfectly self-regulating system. By obsessing over their karma, we are trying to do a job that is not ours, and it is a heavy, thankless, and unnecessary burden. Your only task is to tend to your own garden, not to curse the weeds in your neighbors. This brings us to the second, and more profound, freedom. While their action was their karma, your reaction is your karma. This is the truth that brings the power back into your own hands. Every moment you spend dwelling in resentment, every time you replay the tape of the injustice, every thought of hatred, every fantasy of revenge, is not just a passive feeling. It is an action of the mind. It is a seed you are planting in your own soil right now. A thought of anger is a karmic cause. Its effect is immediate, a surge of cortisol, a tensing of muscles, a clouding of your own joy. A thought of bitterness is a karmic cause. Its effect is a sour taste in your own heart, a cynical filter placed over your own perception of the world. We are so focused on waiting for them to harvest the bitter fruit of their actions in the future that we fail to see that we are forcing ourselves to eat the bitter fruit of our own actions in this and every moment. We are waiting for them to suffer while actively ensuring our own suffering. It is a tragic and deeply illogical state of being, born of a misunderstanding of this simple and elegant law. From this perspective, forgiveness is transformed from a weak surrender into a supremely intelligent and skillful action. It is the wisest form of karmic self-interest. It is the conscious decision to stop planting poisonous seeds in the fertile ground of your own mind. It is the choice, right now, to plant a different kind of seed. A seed of peace, a seed of release, a seed of goodwill. The effect of this cause is also immediate. It is a lightening of the spirit, a calming of the nervous system, a return of creative energy, a reopening to the possibility of joy. You are not letting them off the hook. You are taking yourself out of the prison of your own reactive mind. You are choosing to create a future of peace by planting the seeds of peace today. This entire principle is captured perfectly in a famous encounter in the Buddha's life. A man from a wealthy and influential family was enraged by the Buddha's teachings and the number of people who followed him. He went to find the Buddha and, in front of a large crowd, began to insult him with the most vile and abusive language imaginable. The Buddha did not react. He stood in silence, with an expression of perfect serenity, and simply listened until the man had exhausted his rage and run out of words. When the man fell silent, panting with exertion, the Buddha asked him a gentle question. "My friend," he said, "if you buy a gift for someone, and you go to their house to offer it, but that person does not accept your gift, to whom does the gift then belong?" The man, irritated but bound by logic, scoffed and replied, "If they don't take it, then it still belongs to me." The Buddha nodded and smiled. "Exactly so," he said. "Today, you have come and offered me a gift of anger, insults, and abuse. I do not accept your gift." And with that, he turned and continued on his way, leaving the man stunned, standing alone in the crowd, still holding his own heavy, unopened gift of poison. Forgiveness is this simple, dignified act. It is the refusal to accept the gift of poison. You acknowledge it has been offered, but you politely, and for your own well-being, decline to take it into your hands, into your home, into your heart. The weight of their karma remains with them. The freedom of your karma remains with you. But what is this you that feels so burdened? What is this me that feels so wronged? To truly unburden ourselves, we must look at the very nature of the one who carries this karmic load. We must investigate the self. We have journeyed far. We have seen how our own house is on fire, consumed by the flames of greed, hatred, and delusion. We have understood that our suffering is not a random punishment, but the direct, lawful result of our own actions of mind, our own karma. We have seen that holding on to hatred is like refusing a gift of peace, while clinging to a gift of poison. This brings us to the very heart of the matter, the absolute nucleus of our pain and our potential freedom. It revolves around the heaviest and most cherished words in our language: I, me, and mine. I was betrayed. I was hurt. This happened to me. My trust was broken. As long as this I stands as a solid, wounded, central character in our drama, the story of resentment can never truly end. To find ultimate liberation, we must have the courage to turn our analytical gaze upon this character. We must ask the most profound question: who or what is this I that feels so wronged? This inquiry leads us to the pinnacle of Buddhist wisdom, a teaching so deep it can shatter the very foundations of our suffering. This is the wisdom of anatta, or no self. This teaching is perhaps the most challenging, for it runs contrary to our every intuition. From the moment we are born, we feel like a self. We feel like a continuous, singular entity, a CEO sitting in the control room of our head, looking out through our eyes, experiencing the world. We feel that there is a thinker behind the thought, a feeler behind the feeling. The Buddha, through his own deep investigation, discovered that this feeling, as powerful as it is a subtle and pervasive illusion. He taught that what we call a self is not a static, independent thing, but a dynamic, selfless process. It is not a noun, it is a verb. He analyzed the human experience and broke it down into 5 constantly changing components, the 5 aggregates. There is the body, a stream of physical sensations. There are feelings, a river of pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral tones. There are perceptions, the flashing lights of labeling and recognition. There are mental formations, the whirlwind of thoughts, moods, opinions, and intentions. And there is consciousness, the raw awareness that cognizes the other 4. Look closely at these 5 streams of activity. Is your body the same today as it was a decade ago, or even a moment ago? Every cell has changed. It is in constant flux. Is any single feeling your permanent self? Joy comes and goes. Sadness comes and goes. Are you your thoughts? A thought appears from nowhere, stays for a moment, and vanishes. Where is the permanent, unchanging you to be found in any of these flowing, ephemeral processes? The truth is, it cannot be found. The self is like a word we use to describe a whirlpool in a river. The whirlpool has a recognizable pattern for a time, but it is nothing other than the water itself, constantly flowing through it. There is no separate whirlpool entity inside the water. In the same way, there is no separate self-entity inside the flow of your body and mind. It is a temporary pattern, a convenient label for a dynamic, unfolding process. Now, let us apply this earth-shattering insight directly to our grievance. Think back to the moment you were hurt. Who was that person who received the wound? It was a unique combination of those 5 aggregates, a particular body, with particular feelings, perceptions, and thoughts. Let us call that you, version 1.0. Where is that person now? Their body has changed. Their thoughts are gone. Their feelings have been replaced 1,000,000 times over. That specific configuration of mind and matter that was you version 1.0 has completely dissolved, like a wave crashing upon the shore. So who are you right now? You are you version 5.0 or 10 or 100. You are a new wave. So why does this new wave, this present moment configuration of mind and body, choose to identify with the pain of a previous wave that has long since vanished? You are, in effect, choosing to carry the ghost of a former self and insisting that its pain is your own. It is an act of present moment clinging to a past that no longer exists, about a person who no longer exists. The same radical logic applies to the person who hurt you. The individual who committed the harmful act was also a specific, temporary confluence of body, feelings, thoughts, and intentions. That was them version 1.0. That person is also gone. Their mind and body have changed. They are now them, version 5.0. To hold on to hatred today for what a ghost did in the past is to live in a world of phantoms. You are aiming your anger at a target that is no longer there. This does not mean the action was not harmful. It was. It does not erase the memory. It cannot. But what it does with surgical precision is remove the solid, personal, and permanent nature of both the victim and the villain. When the solid I begins to dissolve and the solid they begins to dissolve, the energy that fuels the fire of hatred has nothing to cling to. The pain is depersonalized. It transforms from a deeply personal wound, my pain, into an impersonal observation. There is a memory of pain. There is a feeling of sadness. This shift is the difference between being trapped inside a burning house and standing outside, watching it burn from a safe distance. The pain is no longer your defining feature. It is just weather, passing through the vast open sky of your awareness. There is a classic paradox from ancient Greek philosophy that beautifully illustrates this concept for the Western mind, the paradox of the ship of Theseus. The story goes that the famous ship of the hero Theseus was preserved in a harbor as a memorial. As the years went by, its old wooden planks began to rot. To maintain the ship, each rotting plank was removed and replaced with a new, identical plank. Over the course of a century, this process continued until not a single one of the original planks remained. The philosophical question is this: is the ship in the harbor still the ship of Theseus? Or is it a completely new ship that simply has the same form? And if some curious historian had collected all the old, discarded planks and reassembled them, which of the two ships would be the true ship of Theseus? This puzzle reveals that the identity of the ship is a concept we impose upon a constantly changing collection of parts. The ship was never a fixed thing. It was always a process of slow decay and renewal. So it is with us. We are the ship of Theseus. Our cells, our thoughts, our emotions are the planks, constantly being replaced, The I we cling to so desperately is just the name we give to this ever-changing vessel. There is no permanent captain to be found on board, only the process of sailing itself. This wisdom of anatta, of no self, is the ultimate antidote to the ego's cry for justice and its clinging to pain. It loosens the knot of selfhood that is at the center of every grievance. When we see, even for a moment, that the me who was hurt and the them who did the hurting are not solid entities but fluid processes, the entire drama collapses. This fluid, impermanent nature is not just a characteristic of you and me. It is a universal law that governs all of existence. To deepen this liberating insight, we must now widen our lens and look at the grand, overarching principle that makes the wisdom of no self possible. We must turn our gaze to the universal truth of impermanence. We have stood at the heart of the storm and looked upon the wisdom of no self, realizing that both the I who was wounded and the they who inflicted the wound are not solid, permanent entities, but ever-changing processes, like waves in a vast ocean. This profound insight is made possible by an even more fundamental law, a truth so pervasive and absolute that it governs everything from the life of a star to the duration of a single thought. It is the first of the three great marks of existence, the universal truth of anicca, or impermanence. To truly grasp the power of letting go, we must steep our minds in this liberating reality. To see that everything changes is to understand that no prison is forever. Look around you. The mountains that seem so solid and eternal are, on a geological timescale, rising and falling like slow-motion waves, ground to dust by wind and rain. Stars are born in fiery nebulae, burn for billions of years, and die in spectacular explosions, their elements scattered to form new worlds, new life. Civilizations rise, build great monuments, and crumble back into the earth. Nothing, absolutely nothing, is static. This cosmic dance of arising and passing away is not just happening out there, in the vastness of space and time. It is happening within you, right now, breath by breath. Your body is not a thing, but a river of sensations, of processes, of cells being born and dying. The sounds reaching your ears are fleeting vibrations. The air you breathe in is different from the air you breathe out. Your life is a continuous, unstoppable flow of change. Now, bring this powerful lens of impermanence to the components of your grievance. Consider the anger itself. We think of anger as a solid state, but is it really? Anger is a chemical storm in the body, a surge of adrenaline, a tightening of muscles. Like any storm, it requires immense energy to sustain itself. No storm can rage forever. It arises, it peaks, and by its very nature, it must subside. The only reason it seems to last so long is because we keep reigniting it with the fuel of our story, throwing more logs of memory onto the fire. But the fire itself, in any given moment, is flickering and changing. Consider the pain, the ache of betrayal, the sorrow of loss. Even this is not a solid block of concrete in your chest. If you watch it closely, you will see it is a shimmering, vibrating field of sensation that changes in intensity, location, and texture from moment to moment. And most importantly, consider the memory itself. We imagine memory as like a perfect video recording, a factual archive of the past. It is not. Neuroscience now confirms what contemplative traditions have known for centuries. Memory is a creative and reconstructive act. Every time you recall the memory of the event, your present mood, your current beliefs, your physical state, all subtly alter the memory. You are not rewatching an old film. You are repainting a picture, adding a new brushstroke of anger here, a darker shade of victimhood there. The memory itself is impermanent. It is not a stone tablet. It is a story written on water. Understanding this, we can see that holding on to a grudge is one of the most unnatural and exhausting things a human being can do. It is an act of profound and futile resistance against the fundamental law of the universe. Imagine you are standing in the middle of a powerful, flowing river. The water is time, change, reality itself. Holding on to resentment is like deciding that you will stop this river. You plant your feet, you clench your fists, and you strain with all your might against the relentless, overwhelming force of the current. The river, of course, does not care. It continues to flow. The only one who suffers is you. The exhaustion you feel from a long-held grudge is not caused by the original hurt. It is the exhaustion of this constant, moment-to-moment struggle against reality. Letting go is not some grand, difficult gesture of magnanimity. It is the simple, sane, and restful act of unclenching your fists and allowing the river to carry you. It is the decision to stop fighting with reality and instead to align yourself with its flow. We can turn this from a concept into a direct experience through a simple practice. Close your eyes and allow the feeling of your resentment to arise. Do not dive into the story of who did what. Instead, become a scientist of your inner experience. Ask yourself, where do I feel this in my body? Is it a tightness in the throat, a heat in the chest, a knot in the stomach? Just locate the raw physical sensation of the emotion. Now, simply watch it. Do not try to change it, or fix it, or push it away. Just observe it with a gentle, curious attention. Notice, does it stay exactly the same, or does its intensity flicker? Does it swell and then, even slightly, recede? Does it shift its location? Your only job is to witness its changing nature, to see its impermanence in real time. Your awareness is like the vast open sky. The emotion is like a dark storm cloud. The sky is not afraid of the cloud. The sky is not harmed by the cloud. It does not need to push the cloud away. It simply provides the space for the cloud to exist, to do what it does, and to eventually, inevitably, drift on and dissolve. By practicing in this way, you are training your mind to see the truth, that you are the sky, not the cloud. There is a timeless folktale that captures the essence of this wisdom. A great and powerful king was plagued by turbulent moods. When he was victorious in battle, his pride and ecstasy were immense. When he suffered a defeat, his despair was bottomless. He summoned the wisest jeweler in his kingdom and gave him a command. "I want you to make me a ring," the king said. "Inscribe upon it a message that will have the power to make me happy when I am sad, and to make me sober when I am happy." The jeweler, a wise man, understood. He returned some days later with a simple gold band. The king took it and looked at the inscription. It contained just 4 words: "This too shall pass." Years later, the king's army suffered a devastating defeat. He was in his tent, filled with despair and shame. He caught a glimpse of the ring on his finger. He read the words, "This too shall pass." A sense of perspective washed over him. He realized his current despair was not his final destination. Later still, he was celebrating a great victory, feasting in his hall, feeling invincible. He glanced at his ring. "This too shall pass." A wave of humility grounded him, tempering his arrogance, reminding him that this peak of glory was also just a temporary station on life's journey. This is the wisdom of Anika. It is the great equalizer. It is the ultimate truth that sets us free. The searing pain of your grievance, the burning fire of your anger, the solid identity of your wound, this too shall pass. We have now traveled through the great intellectual landscapes of Buddhist thought. We have diagnosed the sickness of dukkha. We have seen through the illusion of the solid self with anatta, and we have bowed to the universal law of anicca. Our minds have been prepared, cleared of the conceptual debris that keeps us stuck. But true liberation requires more than just a sharp intellect. It requires an open and tender heart. Having prepared the mind, we are now ready to begin the work of the heart, the gentle cultivation of compassion. And there is only one place to begin this sacred work. We must first learn to offer it to ourselves. We have walked a long road of the intellect, a path of profound, clarifying wisdom. We have dissected the anatomy of our suffering, seeing it not as a solid mass, but as an unstable condition called dukkha. We have dismantled the very idea of a solid self, to be wounded, seeing through the illusion with the wisdom of anatta. We have stood in awe of the universal river of change, the great law of anicca, which promises that nothing, not even our deepest pain, is permanent. The operating theatre has been sterilized with the antiseptic of wisdom, but now, for the healing to begin, a different quality is needed. The surgeon's hand must be not only steady, but exquisitely tender. The sharp clarity of the intellect must be married to the soft, boundless warmth of the heart. This is the quality of karuna, the Sanskrit word for compassion. And we must begin by directing this healing balm to the person who needs it most, the person who has been most neglected, most judged, and most abandoned during this long ordeal. We must learn to offer it to ourselves. In the landscape of the human heart, there is a strange and tragic paradox. For many of us, it is far easier to feel compassion for a stranger, a suffering animal, or a friend in pain, than it is to feel it for ourselves. When we see a friend stumble, our instinct is to rush to their side, to help them up, to say, "Are you okay? It's not your fault." But when we stumble, a different voice often arises, a harsh, internal critic that says, "How could you be so stupid? You should have known better. Get up, don't be so weak." We hold ourselves to an impossible standard of perfection and then punish ourselves for failing to meet it. This deep-seated habit of self-aggression is the primary obstacle to all true healing. We cannot pour tea for another from an empty pot. We cannot offer a balm to others that we refuse to apply to our own wounds. The journey of forgiveness, therefore, does not begin with the other person. It begins with a courageous act of homecoming, of turning inward with a tenderness that may feel foreign, but is essential. To do this, we can use a powerful psychological map. Within each of us, regardless of our age, there exists a part of our psyche that is young, vulnerable, and holds our most tender emotions. This is sometimes called the inner child. It is the part of you that felt the full, unfiltered shock of the original hurt. While your adult mind was busy trying to make sense of it, to rationalize it, or to build defenses against it, it was this innocent part of you that was truly wounded. And for many of us, in our rush to be strong and to move on, we have left that child alone in a dark room, still crying, still confused, still waiting for a loving parent to come and say, "I am here. You are safe." The practice of self-compassion is the act of becoming that loving parent for yourself. Let us try this now, in a quiet, guided reflection. Find a comfortable position and allow your eyes to close. Take a few gentle breaths, and with each exhale, let go of a layer of tension. Now, in your mind's eye, imagine a safe and peaceful place. It could be a quiet forest, a warm beach, a comfortable room. This is your inner sanctuary. When you feel ready, gently invite into this safe space an image of yourself as a child. Perhaps you can see yourself at the very age the hurtful event occurred, or simply a younger, more vulnerable version of you. See this child, not as a concept, but as a living presence. Notice their posture. Are they slumped over in sadness? Are they tense with fear? Are they trembling with anger? Look into their eyes and see the pain and confusion stored there. Now, see your present-day self, the wise, kind adult that you are today, enter this safe place. You approach this child slowly, gently, so as not to startle them. You are not here to fix them or to tell them to stop crying. You are simply here to be with them. Perhaps you kneel down to be at their level, and if it feels right, you can imagine extending your arms and gathering that small child into a warm, safe embrace. As you hold this vulnerable part of yourself, you can offer the words that this child has been waiting a lifetime to hear. You can say to them silently in your heart, "I am here. I see you. I see your pain, and it is real. It was not your fault. You did not deserve what happened. It is okay to feel sad. It is okay to feel angry. You don't have to be strong right now. Just let me hold you. I will not leave you. I will protect you. You are safe now." Rest in this embrace for as long as you need, simply offering presence, warmth, and unconditional acceptance to the wounded part of your own heart. This is the essence of karuna. As you emerge from this practice, it is vital to affirm the validity of your feelings. So often, we add a second layer of suffering by judging our own healing process. We have a thought like, "I have been carrying this for 10 years. I should be over it by now." This "should" is an act of violence against yourself. It is like yelling at a deep wound for not closing faster. Healing has its own intelligence, its own timeline. Your only job is to provide the right conditions, and the primary condition is kindness. To be angry at yourself for being unable to forgive is like being angry at a sick child for having a fever. Imagine a mother sitting by the bedside of her sick child. The child is tossing and turning, crying from the discomfort of a high fever. What does the mother do? Does she stand over the child and shout, "Why are you still sick? Stop this nonsense at once. You are being weak"? Of course not. That would be monstrous. A loving mother does the opposite. She sits down. She takes the child's hand. She gently wipes their forehead with a cool, damp cloth. She speaks in soft, soothing tones. She offers small sips of water. She reads a story. She meets the child's suffering with unwavering tenderness, with patience, with love. She knows that her gentle presence is the most powerful medicine she can offer. We must learn to become this mother for our own pain. Our resentment is our fever. Our wound is our sickness. We must stop berating it and start tending to it. We must sit with it, hold it, and offer it the cool cloth of our own gentle, patient, unconditional compassion. When we practice this, something remarkable happens. We begin to fill our own inner well. We create a foundation of safety and resilience within ourselves. We discover that we can, in fact, survive the pain, that we are strong enough to hold it without being destroyed by it. It is from this place of inner resourcefulness, from this newfound strength born of softness, that we can finally, truly, begin to turn our gaze outward. Having learned to be compassionate with ourselves, we now have the capacity to look upon the story of the one who hurt us, not with the fire of hatred, but with the clear eyes of an adult who is no longer abandoning their own inner child. We are finally strong enough to hear one of the greatest stories of transformation and compassion ever told, the story of the brutal murderer, Angulimala. Having learned to hold our own inner child with a newfound tenderness, having filled our own well with the waters of self-compassion, we arrive at a place of quiet strength. From this fortified ground, we are now able to do something that was previously impossible. We can turn our gaze toward the person who harmed us, not to attack, not to judge, but simply to see more clearly. One of the heaviest chains that binds us to our resentment is the story we tell about the other person. In our story, they are not just a person who did a bad thing. They become a villain, a monster. We freeze them in time at their absolute worst, and we define their entire being by that single act. We build a high, thick wall around them, a wall labeled irredeemable, evil, unforgivable. This wall feels like it protects us, but in reality, it is the wall of our own prison. Today, we are going to take a story from the ancient world, a story of almost unimaginable darkness and light, and use it as a chisel to begin dismantling that wall. This is the story of Angulimala, the man with the garland of fingers. In the kingdom of Kosala, during the time of the Buddha, a shadow of terror had fallen across the land. A merciless killer haunted the Jalini forest, a man so fearsome that villages for miles around were abandoned. Travelers would take detours of 100 miles to avoid his domain. This was not just any bandit. This was Angulimala, a name that made children cry and soldiers tremble. It meant the one with a garland of fingers, for it was said that he wore a necklace made from the severed fingers of his victims. He was seen not as a man, but as a demon, a force of pure evil let loose upon the world, a monster beyond any hope of reason or redemption. But this monster had once been a man named Ahimsaka, which ironically meant the harmless one. He had been the most brilliant and promising student at a renowned university, but his peers, consumed by jealousy, concocted a vicious lie to turn his teacher against him. The teacher, in his own deluded state, gave Ahimsaka a terrible graduation task. To prove his worth, he must slay 1,000 human beings and bring their right-hand fingers as a final offering. His mind twisted by this betrayal and his devotion to his teacher, the gentle Ahimsaka became the terrifying Angulimala, and the forest ran red with his deeds. By the time our story begins, he had amassed 999 fingers for his gruesome garland. He needed only one more. At this time, the Buddha, through his clear seeing, became aware of the situation. He knew that Angulimala's own mother, filled with a desperate love, was planning to enter the forest to try to reason with her son. The Buddha also knew that Angulimala, in his madness, would not recognize her and would almost certainly make her his 1,000th victim, an act so horrific it would seal his suffering for an unimaginable length of time. So, with perfect calm, the Buddha set out, walking alone directly into the killer's path. Villagers saw him and pleaded with him to turn back. "Do not go into that forest, Holy One. Angulimala will surely kill you." The Buddha simply smiled and continued walking. Deep in the forest, Angulimala saw the lone monk approaching. At last, he thought, an easy target. My task will be complete. He drew his sword and began to run. But a strange miracle occurred. Though the Buddha was only walking at a normal, unhurried pace, Angulimala, running with all his might, could not close the distance between them. He ran faster and faster until his lungs burned and his legs ached, but the serene figure of the monk remained just ahead. Exhausted, enraged, and utterly bewildered, Angulimala screamed out, "Stop, monk! Stand still!" The Buddha, without breaking his stride, replied with a voice that was calm and clear, a voice that cut through the madness of the forest. "I have stopped, Angulimala. It is you who have not." Angulimala froze. These words shattered his reality. What could this mean? He was the one standing still, and the monk was still walking. "What do you mean you have stopped and I have not?" he demanded. The Buddha finally turned to face him, his eyes filled not with fear, but with a vast and knowing compassion. "I have stopped, Angulimala," he explained, "because I have laid down the sword. I have stopped creating violence and harm for myself and for others. I have stepped off the wheel of hatred. You, on the other hand, are still running. You are running in a circle of endless killing, fueled by a bottomless rage, creating a future of unimaginable suffering for yourself with every step you take." In that moment, the Buddha was not seeing a monster. He was seeing the deluded student Ahimsaka. He was seeing the immense suffering that was the true source of Angulimala's cruelty. The truth of the Buddha's words, combined with the power of his fearless compassion, broke the fever of Angulimala's mind. The lifetime of delusion cracked open. He saw the utter horror and futility of his actions. He threw down his sword, fell to his knees before the Buddha, and wept, begging to be accepted as a follower, to find a way out of the nightmare he had created. And the Buddha, who saw the seed of goodness that had been buried for so long, simply said, "Come, monk." This story is the ultimate challenge to our ideas of who is and is not worthy of compassion. If this man, a serial killer of 999 people, could be seen not as a monster but as a suffering being, if he contained within him the potential to awaken and become a saint, then who are we to say that the person who harmed us is pure evil? Who are we to decide that they are beyond hope, beyond change? Their action, however painful, was also born from their own suffering, their own ignorance, their own fear, their own frustrated desire. The story of Angulimala invites us to do the impossible, to try and look at the person who hurt us and see not the villain of our story, but the suffering human being behind the act. This does not excuse their action. Angulimala still had to face the consequences of his karma. He was often beaten and bloodied when he went for alms in the very villages he once terrorized. But his inner state was transformed. Forgiveness is not about erasing the deed. It is about transforming our perception of the doer. It is about taking down the wall we built around them, not for their sake, but for ours, so that we are no longer imprisoned by our own judgment. The Buddha's power was his ability to see clearly, without the filter of fear or condemnation. This ability is not a magic power. It is a skill. It is the skill of mindfulness, of learning to observe what is happening, both outside of us and within us, without getting swept away by the stories we tell. And it is to this practice that we now turn. The story of Angulimala reveals the power of the Buddha's compassionate and non-judgmental gaze. He did not see a monster. He saw the suffering that created the monster. This ability to see clearly, without being swept away by fear, disgust, or condemnation, is not a superpower reserved for the enlightened. It is a skill, a capacity of the human mind that can be trained and cultivated. It is the art of becoming a calm and curious scientist of our own inner world, rather than a frantic participant in its dramas. We have spent our lives being tossed about on the stormy sea of our emotions, identifying with every wave of anger, every undertow of sadness. Now, we will learn how to sit on the shore and simply watch the weather of our own heart. The state we normally live in, especially when a powerful emotion like anger takes hold, is a state of fusion. The emotion arises, and in an instant we merge with it. There is no separation. Our thoughts are angry thoughts. Our words are angry words. Our body is an angry body. Our entire universe shrinks to the size and shape of the anger. It dictates our perception. It hijacks our reason. It fuels our actions. We are not a person experiencing anger. We are anger. The practice of mindfulness introduces a process of diffusion, a gentle and radical act of creating space. It allows us to take a step back and see the emotion for what it is, a powerful but temporary visitor passing through our awareness. Not the owner of the house, just a guest. The primary technique for this practice is simple, yet profound. It is the practice of noting, or mental labeling. It is the simple act of placing a soft, gentle, one-word label on the most predominant experience happening in your mind or body from moment to moment. The quality of this label is everything. It is not a sharp, analytical judgment. It is a soft whisper of recognition, like a feather lightly touching a surface. When you notice that the story of your grievance has started playing in your mind like an old film, you can just gently note, thinking or remembering. No need to engage with the content of the thought. Just recognize the process of thinking itself. When you feel the familiar heat rising in your chest or a clenching in your stomach, you can note heat, pressure, or simply sensation. You are moving from being caught in the drama to observing the raw data of your experience. And when you can feel the unmistakable energetic signature of anger itself, you can just note anger or aversion. You are not saying, "I am angry." You are observing, this is the feeling of anger. This is what it feels like in the body. The most powerful metaphor for this practice is that of the sky and the clouds. Think of your true nature, your basic fundamental awareness, as the sky. It is vast, open, spacious, and by its very nature, clear and peaceful. It is always present. Emotions and thoughts are like the weather. They are the clouds that drift through the sky. Anger may be a dark, violent thunderstorm, crackling with lightning and roaring with thunder. Sadness may be a heavy, grey bank of fog that obscures the sun. Joy may be a cluster of bright, puffy white clouds on a summer day. The weather is constantly changing, but the sky itself is never changed by the weather. The thunderstorm does not stain the sky blue. The rain does not make the sky wet. The snow does not make the sky cold. The sky simply provides the unconditional space for all the weather to happen. It holds the storm without becoming the storm. This practice is the gradual, radical shift in identification from the cloud to the sky. We have spent our lives believing we are the storm cloud, tossed about by our own turbulence. Mindfulness is the slow, liberating realization that we are the sky, and we have the capacity to hold any storm with a vast and patient stillness. The cloud of anger arises, we see it, we feel its energy, and we say, "I see you, anger. I have space for you." And we watch as it, like all clouds, eventually changes its shape, dissipates, and drifts on. This act of observing and labeling creates a crucial gap. It interrupts the chain reaction of unconscious reactivity. Normally, a thought of grievance arises, which triggers the emotion of anger, which triggers the impulse to lash out or ruminate. It's an automatic, lightning-fast process. But when we note thinking, we create a half-second pause. In that pause, we have a choice. We can either continue to feed the reaction, or we can simply allow the thought to be, without adding fuel to it. In that space, however small at first, lies all of our freedom and all of our power. We are moving from being a slave to our habitual patterns to being a kind observer of them. We are stepping out of the river of our thoughts and emotions and taking a seat on the bank. Imagine this now. See yourself sitting peacefully on the grassy bank of a wide, flowing river. The river is the stream of your consciousness. Everything that passes through your mind and body is represented by something floating on the river's surface. You watch a dark, gnarled piece of wood float by. You label it a thought of revenge. A cluster of muddy foam comes next. You label it anxiety. A smooth green leaf drifts past, sadness. Then a bright red flower petal appears, a happy memory. Your task, as the watcher on the bank, is not to judge the objects in the river. It is not to jump into the water to try and catch the pretty flowers and push away the ugly branches. This is what we usually do, and it is exhausting, and we always end up just getting wet and carried away by the current. Your only job is to sit, to watch, and to let it all flow by. The river of the mind never stops flowing, but you can learn to rest on the bank in a state of profound peace, simply witnessing the ceaseless flow. We now have a powerful, practical tool for creating space around our difficult emotions. We have learned that we are the sky, not the cloud, the watcher, not the river. This is an essential skill for managing the pain when it arises. But this path is not merely a defensive one. It is not just about learning to endure the negative. It is also about actively, intentionally, and systematically cultivating the positive. Having learned to create a space around the fire of anger, we are now perfectly positioned to fill that new space with the healing water of its direct antidote. We can now begin the sacred work of cultivating loving kindness, the radiant warmth of metta. And as with all true healing, the only place to begin is with ourselves. We have learned to become the calm shore, watching the turbulent river of our thoughts and feelings flow by. We have trained in the art of creating space, of being the vast sky that is unstained by the passing clouds of anger and grief. This is an essential skill, a profound act of mental self-defense. But this path is not only about learning to endure the storms, it is also about learning to generate our own light, to actively cultivate a radiant inner warmth that can melt the ice of resentment and illuminate the darkest corners of our hearts. Having learned to create a space around the poison of hatred, we are now ready to fill that space with its direct and powerful antidote. This antidote is known as metta, a word from the ancient Pali language that translates as loving kindness. It is the sincere, heartfelt wish for oneself and for all beings to be happy. It is not romantic love. It is not conditional affection. It is a steady, unconditional friendliness, a radiant quality of the heart that we can learn to cultivate, just like a muscle. This practice is the beginning of our offense, our active move toward a life of warmth, connection, and profound peace. Before we begin, we must understand the fundamental principle of this practice. It always starts with ourselves. This is not a selfish act, it is a necessary one. For many of us, our inner world is a harsh landscape, dried out by years of self-criticism, judgment, and neglect. To try and generate love for others from this place is like trying to grow a lush garden in a desert. We must first irrigate and fertilize our own soil. We must fill our own well before we can offer a drink to anyone else. You have heard the safety instructions on an airplane. In case of a loss of cabin pressure, you must put on your own oxygen mask first before attempting to help others, even your own child. Why? Because if you lose consciousness, you are of no use to anyone. So it is with the heart. If you are suffocating from a lack of self-compassion, you have no oxygen to offer the world. This first step, then, is the most crucial. It is the act of putting on your own mask, of filling your own cup, of offering yourself the kindness you have so freely given to others and so cruelly withheld from yourself. Let us begin the practice together. Find a posture that is both comfortable and upright, a posture that embodies dignity and ease. Allow your eyes to gently close. Take 3 deep, slow breaths. With each inhale, feel the body being nourished. With each exhale, feel a layer of tension, of striving, of judgment melting away. Let your body become still. Let your mind begin to settle. Now, bring your awareness to the area of your heart. If it helps, you can place a hand gently over the center of your chest, a simple gesture of warmth and self-connection. Just feel the gentle pressure and warmth of your own hand. For a moment, call to mind a being for whom it is very easy to feel love. perhaps a small child or a beloved pet. Picture them and allow the natural feeling of warmth and tenderness that you have for them to arise in your heart. You are not trying to create a big emotion, just a simple, soft feeling of friendliness. Now, see if you can gently turn that same quality of warmth inward toward yourself. Let that feeling be for you. We will now use a set of traditional phrases, like vessels, to carry our intention. Repeat them silently in the quiet of your own mind, letting the words sink into your heart rather than just staying in your head. As you breathe in, you can say the first part of the phrase, and as you breathe out, the second. Let's begin. Breathing in, silently repeat to yourself, "May I be safe." Breathing out, feel the essence of that wish, safe from outer harm, and safe from the inner harm of your own harsh judgments. A deep, abiding sense of security. May I be safe. Breathing in, silently repeat, "May I be healthy." Breathing out, wish for yourself a body that is strong and free from pain, and a mind that is healthy, free from the sickness of hatred and confusion. May I be healthy. Breathing in, silently say, "May I be peaceful." Breathing out, feel what that peace would be like. A heart that is calm, a mind that is at ease, free from the inner war of resentment and regret. The profound peace of self-acceptance. May I be peaceful. Breathing in, offer yourself this beautiful phrase, "May I live with ease." Breathing out, let go of the struggle, the ease of not fighting with life, not resisting reality, the grace of moving through the world with a light heart and a gentle spirit. May I live with ease. Now, just continue with these phrases, at your own pace. May I be safe. May I be healthy. May I be peaceful. May I live with ease. Let the phrases be a gentle rhythm, a lullaby for your own wounded heart. As you do this, you may encounter difficulties. This is perfectly normal. It is part of the practice. Perhaps a voice arises in your mind that says, "This is fake. I don't really feel this." Or, "I don't deserve this." When this happens, do not fight with the voice. Do not judge yourself for having these thoughts. See them for what they are. Clouds passing through the vast sky of your awareness. These thoughts are the very reason this practice is so necessary. They are the voice of your old, harsh conditioning. Your practice is to simply acknowledge that voice, that cloud, and then gently, patiently, and with great kindness, return to the phrases. The phrases are the medicine for the very doubt you are feeling. The intention is more important than the immediate feeling. You are planting seeds. You may not see the flower bloom today, but your only job is to faithfully, gently plant the seeds. If you feel nothing but a mechanical repetition of words, that is perfectly okay. Continue to repeat them. You are wearing a new groove in the mind, and it takes time. Be patient with yourself. Be as kind to yourself in this practice as you would be to a small child learning to walk. You would not yell at them for falling. You would simply help them up and encourage them to try again. Do the same for yourself now. May I be safe. May I be healthy. May I be peaceful. May I live with ease. This practice is the foundation. It is the act of returning home. For too long, our inner world has been a battleground. With this practice, we are signing a peace treaty with ourselves. We are declaring an end to the civil war. We are coming to understand that we are, and have always been, worthy of our own love, our own kindness, our own care. We continue this practice until our own cup begins to feel full, until the waters of metta begin to rise. And the beautiful nature of a full cup is that it naturally begins to overflow. The beautiful nature of a heart that is filled with warmth is that it cannot help but radiate that warmth outward. Having put on our own oxygen mask and taken deep, life-giving breaths, we now find ourselves with the strength, the stability, and the sincere desire to turn to the person sitting next to us and offer them our help. Our journey of kindness now expands. We have taken the first, most courageous step on the path of the heart. We have learned to sit by our own side, to hold our own pain, and to offer ourselves the gentle waters of loving kindness. We have begun to fill our own cup. Now we discover a magical property of this particular cup. The more we fill it for ourselves, the more it naturally wants to overflow. Loving kindness is not a finite resource to be hoarded. It is a living spring. The more freely we allow it to flow outward, the more powerfully it bubbles up from within. This next stage of our practice is about opening the channel, about learning to share the warmth we have cultivated. We will now expand the circle of our compassion by a single step, moving from ourselves to another. This is the practice that strengthens the heart, that amplifies our positive energy, and that teaches us the profound joy of selfless connection. To begin, I want you to choose a benefactor, a dear friend, or a loved one. The key here is to choose someone for whom your feelings are simple, easy, and uncomplicated. This is not the time to choose a romantic partner with whom you have a complex history, or a family member who brings up difficult feelings. The purpose of this step is to make the generation of loving kindness as effortless as possible. Think of a beloved teacher who inspired you, a grandparent whose kindness always felt like a safe harbor, a dear friend whose laughter is a source of pure joy, or even the pet you pictured earlier. Choose one being whose memory naturally and easily brings a smile to your face and a warmth to your heart. This person will be our training partner for opening the heart. Now, once again, find that comfortable, dignified posture. Close your eyes and let the world fall away. Take a few breaths to settle into the present moment. First, just as we did before, briefly bring yourself to mind and silently offer yourself the phrases of metta. May I be safe. May I be healthy. May I be peaceful. May I live with ease. Start by filling your own cup first, establishing that foundation of self-compassion. Now, keeping that feeling of warmth in your own heart, gently let your own image fade and allow the image of your chosen friend or benefactor to appear in your mind's eye. Don't just see a flat photograph. See them as a living, breathing presence. See them smiling. See the light and kindness in their eyes. Feel their presence with you, as if they were sitting right in front of you, bathed in a warm, gentle light. Notice the natural feeling of affection and appreciation that arises as you bring them to mind. This feeling is the seed of metta we will now nurture. Holding this clear image and this warm feeling in your heart, we will now adapt the phrases and direct them outward to this beloved person. From your heart to theirs, silently offer these wishes, these blessings. As you breathe, from a place of genuine care, silently say, "May you be safe. May you be free from all inner and outer harm. May you feel protected, secure, and at peace in your life. May you be safe." From your heart, send this wish. May you be healthy. May your body be strong and full of vitality. May your mind be clear and your spirit vibrant. May you be free from sickness and pain. May you be healthy. Let your heart radiate this quality. May you be peaceful. May you be free from the turmoil of anxiety, fear, and worry. May you know a deep and abiding inner tranquility. May your heart be at ease. May you be peaceful. And finally, offer this beautiful aspiration. May you be happy. May your life be filled with joy and wonder. May you achieve your dreams and aspirations. May you feel a deep sense of contentment and fulfillment. May you be truly, genuinely happy. Now continue on your own, letting these phrases flow from you to them on the rhythm of your breath. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be peaceful. May you be happy. As you repeat the phrases, you can even visualize your intention as a stream of beautiful golden light flowing from the center of your chest and enveloping your friend in a sphere of radiant warmth and protection. Don't worry about whether they are receiving it. That is not the point. The practice is about the act of giving. It is about the quality of your own heart in this moment. Feel the joy that comes from sincerely wishing another well, with no thought of getting anything in return. This is the feeling of metta. It is generous, it is expansive, it is freeing. Rest in this feeling, this selfless radiation of loving kindness. This stage of the practice is so important because it is here that we train the muscle of the heart. By focusing on an easy subject, someone we already love, we build our capacity for generating metta. It's like lifting a manageable weight at the gym to build our strength before trying to lift something heavier. We are proving to ourselves that we have this capacity for unconditional friendliness within us. We are learning, through direct experience that loving kindness is not a transaction. It does not diminish us to give it away. In fact, we often feel more whole, more joyful, more alive when we are in the act of giving it. There is a beautiful teaching that compares this quality of the heart to a flame. Imagine you are in a vast, dark hall holding a single lit candle. Your flame is bright and steady. This is the loving kindness you have cultivated for yourself. Now, another person approaches you with an unlit candle. You touch your flame to their wick, and their candle bursts into light. Look at your own flame. Has it diminished? Has it grown weaker by sharing its light? Number. It remains just as bright, just as powerful as it was before. But now, there are 2 lights in the hall instead of 1. Then those 2 light 2 more, and the 4 light 8, until the entire dark hall is filled with 1,000 points of light, 1,000 radiant flames, all originating from your single, generous act of sharing. Your light was not depleted, it was replicated. This is the nature of metta. Sharing it does not exhaust our supply. It simply reveals that the supply is infinite. It multiplies the amount of light, peace, and warmth in the world. We can now feel the result of this practice. The heart feels more open. The mind feels more gentle. We have experienced the simple joy of wishing another well. The circle of our compassion has successfully expanded from 1 to 2. Our candle has proven it can light another. Having warmed up the heart and experienced this flow of positive energy, we are now ready for a new, more subtle expansion. We are ready to take the next step in our training, to see if we can offer this same unconditional friendliness, not to someone we love, but to someone for whom we feel nothing at all, a neutral person. We will learn to radiate our light even to those who we do not know. We have taken 2 vital steps on the path of the heart. We began by turning inward, offering the radical gift of loving kindness to ourselves, filling our own cup until it was full. Then, from that fullness, we allowed our compassion to naturally overflow to a dear friend or benefactor, learning the joy of sharing our light without diminishing it. Our map of care, which once may have only had a single bright spot labeled me, now has 2. But the world is filled with billions of other people, souls we pass every day who exist outside this tiny, brightly lit circle of our personal concern. They are the background characters in our life's movie, the cashier at the market, the person delivering our mail, the face in the opposite train car. They exist in a vast, grey, unexplored territory of our heart map, a territory labeled stranger, or more accurately, irrelevant. This next stage of our practice is a courageous exploration into that territory. It is the step that begins to dissolve the arbitrary borders of the ego, transforming our preferential, conditional affection into a vast, impartial, and universal compassion. The human mind, as a survival mechanism, is brilliant at categorizing. It creates neat boxes: friend, enemy, family, threat, useful, unimportant. This helps us navigate a complex world, but it also builds high walls around our heart. We end up truly seeing only a tiny fraction of the humanity around us. The rest are ghosts, functional objects we interact with to get through our day. This practice of extending loving kindness to a neutral person is a direct and powerful antidote to this habit of indifference. It is a training in seeing the sacred humanity in everyone, not just those who are important to our personal story. It is a revolutionary act that declares another person's happiness matters, simply because they are a living being, not because of their relationship to us. To begin, I want you to choose your subject for this practice. Let your mind scan through the last few days and select a person with whom you have had a brief, simple interaction. Someone for whom you feel neither liking nor disliking. It could be the barista who made your coffee this morning, the person who held the door for you at the office, the stranger you briefly made eye contact with while walking down the street. Choose one such person. You do not know their story, their hopes, their fears. They are, to your emotional mind, a blank slate. And this is precisely what makes them the perfect candidate for this profound exercise. We must learn to generate the warmth of metta without the fuel of personal affection or shared history. Now, settle into your meditative posture, allowing your body and mind to grow still. As before, we begin by warming up the heart. First, offer the phrases of loving kindness to yourself. May I be safe. May I be healthy. May I be peaceful. May I live with ease. Feel that foundation of self-compassion. Then, let your dear friend come to mind and radiate the phrases to them. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be peaceful. May you be happy. Feel the easy flow of warmth and goodwill. Now, with the heart open and the energy flowing, gently allow the image of your friend to fade, and in its place, bring to mind the image of the neutral person you have chosen. See their face as best you can. Before we use the phrases, let us perform a vital act of compassionate imagination. Look at this person, this stranger, and reflect silently in your heart. Just like me, this person has a life, a story I know nothing about. Just like me, this person has known joy and has known sorrow. Just like me, they have people they love and worry about. Just like me, they have hopes for the future and regrets from the past. Just like me, in the deepest part of their being, they wish to be happy. Just like me, they wish to be free from suffering. In this fundamental way, we are not strangers, we are exactly the same. Let this recognition of your shared humanity be the bridge that connects your heart to theirs. Now, from this place of shared connection, begin to offer them the same gift you offered to yourself and to your friend. This may feel mechanical or strange at first. Persevere with gentle intention. Silently, from your heart to theirs, repeat the phrases. May you be safe. May you be free from danger and fear. May you be healthy. May you enjoy a life of physical and mental well-being. May you be peaceful. May your heart be calm and your mind untroubled. May you be happy. May you experience true joy and fulfillment in your life. Continue to repeat these phrases, allowing the intention to flow from you. You are not trying to force a feeling. You are simply holding this person in a space of unconditional, positive regard. You are including them in the circle of your care, for no other reason than your shared existence. You are breaking a lifelong habit of indifference. This is a profound and heart-opening practice. Rest in this quiet, expansive generosity for a few moments. This practice is the great purifier of the heart. It stretches our capacity for love beyond the narrow confines of our personal preferences and biases. It is the beginning of a truly universal compassion. There is a beautiful analogy for this quality of mind, that of the rain. Imagine a soft, life-giving rain falling from the heavens. It falls upon the most exquisite rose in a king's meticulously kept garden, its drops clinging like jewels to the velvety petals, nourishing its roots. And at the very same moment, that same rain falls with the exact same generosity upon a common weed growing in a crack in the pavement. It falls on the strong, ancient oak tree and on the struggling, forgotten sapling. The rain does not choose. It does not judge who is beautiful or who is plain, who is important or who is insignificant. It does not ration its life-giving water only for the flowers it likes. It simply gives of itself, freely, impartially, and unconditionally to all. Our metta, our loving kindness, must become like the rain. It must learn to fall upon those we love and those we do not know, with the same nourishing and non-discriminating grace. Through this practice, our heart, which was once a small, walled-in private garden, is becoming a vast, open field, ready to offer its nourishment to all. The walls of indifference are beginning to dissolve. We have lit our own candle. We have shared its flame with a friend, and now we have discovered that its light can illuminate even the face of a stranger. The heart is now as open, as resilient, and as radiant as we can make it through these preparatory stages. We have trained, we have strengthened, and we have expanded our capacity for care. We are now standing at the threshold of the most courageous act of the heart. We are now, finally, ready to face the ultimate test of this practice, the culmination of this entire journey. We are now ready to attempt to shine this same unconditional light toward the person who has caused us the most pain. We have arrived at the heart of the labyrinth, the final threshold of this journey of the heart. We have practiced diligently, filling our own cup with self-compassion, allowing it to overflow to a loved one, and expanding it even to a stranger. Our heart is now as warm, as open, and as resilient as we can make it. We have done all this preparatory work for a single, courageous purpose: to see if it is possible to let the light of our loving kindness shine on the one person who dwells in the deepest shadow of our mind, the person with whom we have our greatest difficulty. This is the ultimate test of our practice, the final heroic act of letting go. But before we take a single step further, hear this with all your heart. This practice is an invitation, not a command. Your safety and well-being are the absolute priority. If at any point during this exercise the feeling becomes too overwhelming, too painful, or too raw, you have full and unconditional permission to stop. There is no failure in this. The true wisdom is knowing your own limits with kindness. If it becomes too much, simply return your awareness to your own breath, or bring back the image of your dear friend, and rest in that safe harbor. The purpose of this is to liberate you, not to re-traumatize you. Proceed only with immense gentleness. Remember why we undertake this seemingly impossible task. This is not for them. This is not about letting them off the hook or condoning what they did. Their actions stand on their own. This practice is 100% for you. It is the final, definitive act of removing the second arrow. It is about reclaiming the last piece of your inner real estate that you have allowed them to occupy, rent-free, for far too long. It is about declaring that your peace is more sacred than your grievance. It is the ultimate act of self-love and liberation. So, when you feel ready, let us begin. Start, as always, by grounding yourself. Generate the feeling of metta for yourself. May I be safe. May I be healthy. May I be peaceful. Feel that solid foundation. Then, bring your dear friend to mind and let your heart flow to them. May you be safe and happy. Then, bring your neutral person to mind and extend the wish to them. May you be safe and happy. Let your heart become a radiant sun filled with warmth and unconditional friendliness. Now, with your heart as stable and as full as possible, I invite you to gently, carefully, allow the image of the difficult person to appear in your mind. Do not force it, and as they appear, I want you to employ a crucial safety measure. Visualize them at a great distance. See them on a faraway hilltop or across a wide, calm lake. You are here, safe on your shore. They are over there. You are in complete control of the distance. Now, from this safe distance, look at them. For just a moment, try to suspend the story, the narrative of what they did. See them not as the villain, not as the monster, but simply as a human being. A collection of flesh, blood, and bone. A person who was once a child. A person who has their own fears, their own secret sorrows, their own profound ignorance. See them as a manifestation of the human condition, just as you are. Now, let us try to build a bridge of understanding with a quiet reflection. Silently, in your heart, acknowledge this truth. Just as I wish to be happy, this person, in their own confused way, also wishes to be happy. Just as I wish to be free from suffering, this person also wishes to be free from suffering. Their harmful action, seen through the eyes of wisdom, was a deeply unskillful and misguided attempt to find some kind of happiness or end some kind of pain for themselves. It came not from a place of peace, but from a place of inner poverty, from their own dukkha. Now comes the most courageous part. We will gently, experimentally, see if it is possible to extend a simple healing wish in their direction. Remember, you can stop at any time. Let's start with a phrase that is often easier than the traditional metta phrases. From your heart, across the safe distance, see if you can offer this wish. May you be free from hatred. Acknowledge the profound meaning of this wish. Hatred is a fire that consumes the one who holds it. By wishing for them to be free from hatred, you are wishing for them to be free from their own inner torment. And when a person is free from hatred, they are no longer capable of causing harm to others. This wish, therefore, is a profound wish for the safety and well-being of the entire world, including yourself. Let's try another. May you find peace, not as a reward, but as a medicine. May you find the inner peace that will prevent you from ever creating suffering for others again. If this feels manageable, you can now experiment with the traditional phrases. Do not force a feeling. Just offer the intention, like skipping a stone across the surface of the lake that separates you. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be peaceful. May you be happy. If a wave of anger or pain arises in you, that is okay. It is the wound showing you where it needs to be healed. Acknowledge it. Anger is here. Then bring the compassion back to yourself immediately. Hold your own pain. And only when you feel stable again, if you choose, you can turn your attention back to them. This is a practice of titration, of finding the right dose. Why would we do something so difficult? Why would we offer a wish for happiness to the very person who has shattered our own? The answer lies in one of the most moving stories of the Buddha's life. One day in the monastery, a certain monk had fallen gravely ill with dysentery. He was old and had no one to care for him, and he lay in his own filth, wretched and abandoned. The other monks, out of disgust for the smell and the sight, simply avoided his hut. The Buddha, on his daily rounds, discovered the sick monk. Without a word of judgment, he turned to his cousin and assistant, Ananda, and asked him to fetch water and a cloth. And then the Buddha, the great teacher of gods and men, knelt down beside the suffering monk. With his own hands, he began to gently wash the man's soiled body, cleaning his robes and making him comfortable. The other monks, when they heard what was happening, gathered in stunned, ashamed silence. The Buddha then turned to them and delivered a timeless teaching. "You have no mothers or fathers here to look after you," he said. "If you do not care for one another, who else will? Know this: whoever looks after the sick and the suffering looks after me." In this story lies the key. The person who has harmed us is, from a spiritual perspective, profoundly sick. They are afflicted with the terrible illness of hatred, of greed, of delusion. To offer them a thought of compassion is not to approve of their sickness. It is to be like the Buddha, who was willing to touch the most difficult, messy, and painful parts of humanity with a fearless tenderness. It is an act of supreme spiritual courage, and in doing so, we are not healing them. We are healing ourselves. We are demonstrating that our capacity for compassion has become so vast that it can even include our own pain and the source of our pain. By caring for the most broken part of humanity we can imagine, we are caring for the highest, most noble part of ourselves. Even the willingness to try this practice is an earthquake that shakes the foundations of our prison of resentment. And to make this courageous act easier, it helps to change the story we tell ourselves about what happened. To see their humanity more clearly is the next step on our path. We have stood at the precipice of the heart's most courageous act, the willingness to extend a thought of goodwill to the one who has hurt us. For many, this practice feels difficult, if not impossible. The resistance we feel is not a sign of failure. It is a sign that the story we hold about the event is still powerful, still charged, still casting a long and dark shadow. Our compassion cannot flow towards a monster, and in the narrative of our grievance, the other person has become a monster. So, if we wish to soften the heart, we must first soften the story. We must be willing to move from the simple, two-dimensional world of heroes and villains into the more complex, more compassionate, and ultimately more truthful, three-dimensional world of human suffering. This is the practice of changing our perspective. For so long, our inquiry has been focused on what happened to us. Now, we will gently and with great curiosity begin to inquire into the state of the one who harmed us. This is not about excusing their behavior. It is about understanding it. Understanding and excusing are not the same thing. To understand the origins of a fire does not mean we are happy that our house burned down, but it does replace the smoke of confusion with the clear air of wisdom. So, let us begin a quiet, contemplative inquiry. We do not need answers. The power is in the sincere asking of the questions. Bring the person to mind, and instead of replaying the event, ask these questions with a soft and open heart. I wonder what fears were alive in you at that moment. All human beings are driven by fear. The fear of not being good enough, the fear of losing control, the fear of being seen as weak, the fear of being abandoned. Could their harmful action have been a clumsy, misguided attempt to protect themselves from some imagined threat, some deep-seated fear? I wonder what pain you might have been carrying. There is a simple and profound truth in the saying, hurt people hurt people. Contented, peaceful, and whole people do not go around causing harm. Harmful actions are almost always the overflow of a person's own inner torment. The cruelty they showed to you was very likely a reflection of the cruelty they routinely inflict upon themselves. I wonder what secret sorrows, what old traumas, what deep insecurities they were trying to escape from when they acted as they did. I wonder what ignorance was operating in your mind. What stories were you telling yourself? Were you deluded into thinking that your actions would bring you happiness, or power, or relief? Were you blind to the consequences, unable to see the chain of suffering you were setting in motion for yourself and for others? I wonder who taught you to behave this way. None of us are born into a vacuum. We learn our patterns of coping, our ways of lashing out, from our families, our culture. I wonder what kind of pain was modeled for you as a child, what kind of love was withheld, that taught you that this was an acceptable way to move through the world. Again, we do not need to know the answers. The act of asking these questions begins to do something miraculous. It begins to transform the other person in our own mind, from a two-dimensional caricature of a villain, into a three-dimensional, complex, flawed, and suffering human being. When we can see their suffering, even just a little, the hard knot of our own hatred begins to soften. We are no longer the righteous victim facing down a monster. We are now a wise observer, looking with a sad and compassionate heart at two suffering beings and ourselves caught in a painful, tangled web. This shift in perspective is the key that unlocks the prison door. As long as they are the villain, we are trapped in the corresponding role of the victim, a role that is powerless and forever defined by the past. The moment we see them as a suffering being, we are free to step out of the victim role and into the role of the compassionate witness. This is where we reclaim our power. There is an old story that speaks to this wisdom. A person is walking through a field and is suddenly bitten on the leg by a venomous snake. The pain is sharp and immediate. The person, in a surge of rage and fear, immediately forgets about their own wound and begins to chase the snake, shouting, "I will kill you for this." They run through the tall grass, thrashing about with a stick, obsessed with punishing the snake. All the while, the venom is spreading through their veins, their own life draining away with every moment they spend focused on revenge. Now, imagine a wise person in the same situation. They are bitten, and they feel the same sharp pain. But their first and only thought is, "I am wounded. I must treat the wound." They immediately sit down. They try to slow their heart rate. They call for help. They focus every ounce of their energy on getting the poison out of their own system. Later, from a place of safety and healing, they might reflect, "The snake is a creature of instinct. It bit me because it was frightened, because it felt cornered. It was simply acting out its nature." This understanding doesn't make the snake bite any less painful or dangerous, but it places the event in a larger, less personal context. The foolish person dies from their own obsession with blame. The wise person lives because they prioritize their own healing. Your resentment is the venom. Your obsession with the other person's wrongdoing is the act of chasing the snake. Wisdom is turning your attention away from the snake and toward your own wound. It is the understanding that their harmful action was just a snake being a snake, acting out of its own fear and its own nature. This shift in perspective, from personal attack to tragic expression, is profoundly liberating. It is the application of wisdom that makes true compassion possible. We have now learned to reframe the story about the person who hurt us. But what if we could go even one level deeper? What if we could reframe the very nature of the event itself? What if the event, stripped of all our stories, all our interpretations, all our blame, has no inherent, solid meaning at all? To explore this possibility, we must venture into one of the most subtle and profound teachings of all, the wisdom of emptiness. We have walked a path of profound reframing. We have learned to see the person who harmed us not as a monster, but as a suffering human being. This is a courageous shift that softens the heart. But now we are called to take one final, deep dive into the nature of reality itself, to peel back the very last layer of illusion that keeps our suffering in place. We have questioned our perception of ourselves. We have questioned our perception of the other. And now we must question our perception of the event itself. This inquiry leads us to the most subtle, the most profound, and the most liberating teaching in the Buddhist tradition, the wisdom of sunyata, often translated as emptiness. Before we proceed, it is vital to understand what emptiness is not. When we hear the word emptiness, we might imagine a terrifying black void, a cold, nihilistic abyss where nothing matters. This is not at all what sunyata means. It is not a statement of non-existence. It is a statement about the nature of existence. Sunyata means that things are empty of a solid, separate, independent, and permanent self-nature. It means that phenomena, including events, do not have meaning, purpose, or quality built into them. They do not come pre-labeled as good or bad, fair or unfair. They are, in their raw essence, neutral. They are like a blank movie screen. Our mind, with all of its history, its conditioning, its fears, and its desires, is the projector. We project a film onto the blank screen of reality, a film filled with our own stories, judgments, and interpretations. And then, forgetting that we are the projectionist, we react with genuine terror, rage, or despair to the movie we ourselves are creating. Let us apply this directly to the hurtful event in your past. Strip it down to its barest components. What actually happened? Perhaps there were certain sound vibrations that entered your ears, which your brain interpreted as words. Perhaps there was a physical action, a body moving in a particular way. These raw sensory inputs are the blank screen. They are the event, empty of any inherent meaning. But our mind did not leave the screen blank. Instantly, the projector switched on, and we projected a story onto it. This is a betrayal. This is an insult. This is a humiliation. This is an injustice. This is the end of my happiness. And it is this story, this projected film, that we have been reacting to ever since. The suffering, the anger, the pain does not arise from the event itself, but from the meaning we have assigned to it, the story we have told about it, and our absolute, unquestioning belief that our story is reality. The wisdom of sunyata is the ability to differentiate between the screen and the film. It is the moment we realize we are the projectionist. This realization does not magically erase the memory, nor does it invalidate the very real pain we felt. A terrifying horror movie can make our heart pound with real physiological fear, even though we know it is just light and shadow on a screen. The feeling was real. The suffering was real. But we are no longer trapped by the film's narrative as the ultimate truth. We see the story as a mental creation, a product of our own mind. And what the mind has created, the mind can see through. When we see the emptiness of the event, its lack of a built-in, solid, permanent meaning, the story we have wrapped around it begins to lose its adhesive power. It becomes less sticky, less solid, less absolute. And when the story loosens its grip, the painful emotions that are bound to that story also begin to loosen their grip. This is the path to seeing things as they truly are, a state the ancient texts call yatha bhuta, the vision of things as they have come to be. We see the event not as a solid, personal assault, but as an impersonal phenomenon that arose due to a near-infinite web of causes and conditions, and has since passed away. It was a ripple in the vast ocean of existence, no more and no less. By seeing it this way, we are not diminishing its impact. We are placing it within a context so vast that it can finally come to rest. We take it off the small, personal altar of our grievance and release it into the universe. There is a classic teaching story that perfectly illustrates this wisdom. A man is walking into his dark shed late at night. As his eyes adjust to the gloom, he sees a coiled shape on the floor in the corner. His mind, conditioned by a lifetime of caution, instantly projects a meaning onto this neutral shape. Snake. The moment the thought snake arises, a whole cascade of real suffering begins. His heart begins to hammer in his chest. Adrenaline floods his system. His body is seized by a very real, very painful terror. His suffering is entirely real, but its cause is a complete illusion. Now imagine a friend comes up behind him and calmly flips on the light switch. In the bright, clear light, the man can now see the object on the floor for what it is. It is not a snake. It is, and always was, a coiled piece of rope. In that moment of seeing clearly, what happened? The object on the floor, the rope, did not change at all. It was empty of any inherent snakeness. It was just a rope. What changed was the man's perception, the projection he was casting onto the object. When the light of wisdom came on, the false projection of the snake dissolved, and the suffering, the fear, the pounding heart dissolved right along with it. The hurtful event in your life is the rope on the floor. In the darkness of our confusion and pain, we have been projecting snake onto it for years, and suffering from the very real terror of our own projection. The wisdom of sunyata is the act of turning on the light. It is the practice of looking directly at the event, without our story, and seeing it for what it is. Just an event, just a rope. When we can finally see this, the terrible, venomous power it has held over us is gone. It was never in the rope itself. It was only ever in our perception. We have now journeyed from the circumference of our pain to its very core. We have examined the nature of suffering, the illusion of the self, the law of impermanence, and now, the empty nature of reality itself. We have assembled a complete toolkit of wise understanding. The mind is now prepared, not just to manage our pain, but to utterly transcend it. The final question is, how do we live from this place? How do we take this profound, liberating wisdom off the meditation cushion and weave it into the fabric of our daily lives? The answer is that this wisdom, when fully integrated, brings with it the greatest gift of all, the ability to finally, fully, and freely live in the only moment that ever truly exists, the present moment. We have journeyed to the deepest, most subtle realms of the mind. We have dissected the nature of our suffering. We have seen through the illusion of a solid self. We have bowed to the universal law of change. And we have even touched upon the profound wisdom of emptiness, realizing that the events of our lives are blank screens upon which we project our own stories. We have assembled a powerful set of tools for understanding and deconstructing our pain. And now, we must ask the most important question of all. What is the purpose of this entire journey? What is the gift that this profound, and at times difficult, work ultimately bestows upon us? The answer is exquisitely simple. The gift is the key to the only place where life ever truly happens. The gift is your own present moment. To live with a grievance is to be a ghost in your own life. Your body may be sitting in a room in the present year, but your mind, your heart, your very soul are trapped elsewhere. You are a time traveler, caught in a torturous loop. A part of you is perpetually living in the past, endlessly replaying the scene of the crime, having imaginary arguments, relitigating a case in the courtroom of your mind that has long been adjourned. You are in conversation with people who are not there, reacting to words that are now just silent echoes. The other part of you is living in the future, a future born of that painful past. You are fantasizing about revenge, anxiously awaiting an apology that may never come, planning for confrontations that will likely never happen. You are caught between the ghost of what was and the mirage of what might be, and the cost of this time travel is immense. The cost is the present moment, the simple, sacred, unrepeatable reality of right now, the feeling of the air on your skin, the taste of your food, the sound of a loved one's voice. The color of the evening sky of it is lost, rendered a blurry, gray transit zone between a painful yesterday and an imaginary tomorrow. Forgiveness, then, in its most practical sense, is the ultimate act of time travel back to the only time that is real. It is the conscious and powerful decision to stop living in the graveyard of the past. It is the severing of the chains that bind you to a ghost. It is the declaration that you will no longer sacrifice the tangible reality of this breath, this moment, for the intangible memory of a moment that is gone forever. It is the choice to finally, fully, show up for your own life. This is not a passive surrender. It is an active arrival. It is coming home. But how do we do this, in a practical sense? We do it by training our attention, by anchoring our awareness in the simple sensory reality of the here and now. The mind is like a wild puppy, always wandering off to chew on the old bone of the past, or to chase the phantom squirrel of the future. Our practice is to gently, and without scolding, call the puppy back, again and again, to the safety and reality of the present. We can do this with any activity. Consider the simple act of drinking a cup of tea. Instead of being lost in thought while you drink, you can bring a mindful attention to it. Feel the warmth of the cup in your hands. See the steam rising in the air. Notice the color of the liquid. Bring the cup to your lips and smell its aroma before you drink. Then, as you take a sip, just notice the sensation of the warm liquid in your mouth. Follow the sensation as you swallow. In these few moments, you are not in the past. You are not in the future. You are completely here. You are home. You can do this with walking, feeling the solid connection of your feet on the ground with each step. You can do this with eating, tasting each bite as if it were the first and last time. And you can always do it with your breath. The breath is your most reliable anchor. It is never in the past. It is never in the future. It is always, only now. When you find your mind lost in the old story, the instruction is simple. Gently guide your attention back to the physical sensation of this one single breath. When we practice this, when we begin to unburden the mind from the monumental task of policing the past, an incredible amount of energy is liberated. An awareness that was once consumed by grievance is now free to simply perceive, and you begin to notice things. The world, which had seemed so grey and threatening, begins to reveal its subtle beauty again. The taste of an apple becomes astonishingly crisp and sweet. The pattern of sunlight on the floor becomes a source of quiet wonder. You can hear the music in a person's laughter instead of just the words. This is the gift of an unburdened mind. It does not create a new world. It simply allows you to finally see the beautiful one that has been here waiting for you all along. There is a timeless story of a man who was told that he possessed a priceless, wish-fulfilling gem of immense power. Believing this gem must be hidden in some exotic, faraway land, he sold all his possessions and set out on a great quest. He spent his entire life searching for it. He crossed treacherous oceans, climbed soaring mountains, and traversed vast, burning deserts. He faced pirates and storms, poverty and sickness, all in pursuit of this one precious object that he believed would bring him peace. Finally, old, weary, and utterly defeated, he made the long journey back to the simple hut where he had started. Convinced his life had been a failure, he collapsed in exhaustion onto his old mat. As he lay there, his hand brushed against the inside pocket of the tattered coat he had been wearing all along his journey, and his fingers closed around a smooth, warm, perfectly round stone. With a shock that shook his entire being, he pulled it out. It was the gem. It had been in his own pocket the entire time. The priceless gem is peace. The gem is the simple, profound joy of the present moment. It has been with us all along, hidden only by our frantic belief that it must be found somewhere else, that we must first win the argument with the past, that we must achieve some future justice before we are allowed to have it. The entire journey of forgiveness, with all its deep philosophy and all its heartfelt practice, is a journey designed to help us stop searching outside and to finally reach into our own pocket. It is here. It has always been here. The peace you seek is in this breath. And now, the final step is to learn how to live from this place, how to make this homecoming not just a single event, but a continuous way of being in the world. We have arrived at the final stage of our deep, transformative journey. We began with the image of a burning coal held in the hand, a searing point of personal pain. We have traveled through the vast inner landscapes of the mind, exploring the nature of suffering, the illusion of the self, the universal law of change, and the empty, spacious quality of reality itself. We have learned to tend to our own wounds, to open our hearts, and even to offer a thought of goodwill to the source of our pain. We have, in essence, learned the intricate mechanics of how to open our hand and let the coal drop. But what happens next? What do we do with this newfound freedom? The final step of this journey is to understand that forgiveness is not a single act you perform, like paying off a debt. It is a way of life you embody. It is the art of keeping your hand, your heart, and your mind continuously open, ready to meet each new moment with grace rather than grievance. Our work is not over when the one great resentment has been resolved. Life will continue to present us with opportunities for practice. People will be late, drivers will be reckless, words will be spoken carelessly, we ourselves will make mistakes, fall short of our own ideals. To believe we can reach a permanent state where nothing ever bothers us again is a subtle form of delusion. The true fruit of this journey is not the creation of a perfect, frictionless world, but the cultivation of a resilient, spacious, and forgiving heart that can skillfully navigate the imperfect world that is. Forgiveness, then, transforms from a destination we were striving for into a path we choose to walk, step by step, day by day. It is a conscious commitment we make each morning, not to be a person who has forgiven, but to be a person who is forgiving. When we begin to live in this way, something extraordinary happens. Our inner state, which we imagine to be a private affair, begins to radiate outward. It subtly but powerfully changes the energetic field around us. Think of a time you were in the presence of someone consumed by anxiety or anger. Without them saying a word, you could feel the tension, the constriction in the air. Their inner state was contagious. The opposite is also true. When you are abiding in a state of peace, acceptance, and forgiveness, you carry that energy with you into every room you enter, every conversation you have. Your calm nervous system has a regulating effect on the nervous systems of those around you. When a colleague or family member is spiraling in reactivity, your non-reactive, spacious presence can become a quiet anchor for them, an unspoken invitation for them to find their own calm. You break the cycle of contagious reactivity. Your personal peace is no longer just your own. It becomes a silent, healing gift you offer to the world, simply by being. To make this a lived reality, we must practice. We have been working on a deep, old wound, which is like performing major surgery. Now, we must engage in the daily physical therapy that will strengthen our forgiveness muscle and make this new way of being our default setting. We do this by practicing with the small, daily annoyances of life. When someone cuts you off in traffic, your old habit might be a surge of rage and a string of curses. The new practice is to take a breath, feel the surge of adrenaline, and consciously let it go. You can even silently wish them well. May you be safe. May you get to where you're going without an accident. When a friend says something careless that stings a little, instead of letting it fester and building a case against them, can you see their humanity, their own stress, their lack of skill in that moment, and release it immediately? Most importantly, we must practice with ourselves. When you make a mistake, when you act out of an old, unskillful habit, when you are not the person you wish to be, the practice is to forgive yourself instantly and completely. Instead of descending into a spiral of shame and self-recrimination, you can simply acknowledge the truth. That was unskillful. I am a human being in training. I will learn from this and let it go. Each of these small, moment-to-moment acts of forgiveness is like a single repetition in the gym. It builds a new neural pathway. It strengthens the muscle of release, making the old habit of clinging weaker and weaker. You are training yourself, with every small choice, to live in a state of grace. This is how we heal the world. We often feel overwhelmed by the scale of suffering and conflict we see around us, and we feel powerless to change it. But the great conflicts of the world are just the collective manifestation of the small, private conflicts raging in millions of individual hearts. The one piece of this vast, chaotic universe that you have absolute dominion over is your own mind. The one fire you can truly extinguish is the fire in your own heart. By dedicating yourself to this practice, by diligently working to transform your own poisons of greed, hatred, and delusion into the nectars of generosity, love, and wisdom, you are performing the most profound and effective form of activism there is. You are removing one source of toxicity from the collective atmosphere. You are becoming one less person contributing to the world's pain, and one more person contributing to its peace. Imagine a vast, crystal-clear mountain lake, its surface as still and smooth as glass, perfectly reflecting the sky above. Then, a single drop of rain falls from the heavens and touches the center of the lake. It makes a tiny, almost silent sound. From that single point of contact, a beautiful, perfect ripple emerges. It is followed by a second and a third, each one expanding outward, moving in serene, concentric circles. The ripples travel across the entire, vast expanse of the lake, their gentle energy eventually touching every distant shore, every hidden cove, every single part of the whole. Your quiet, personal, internal act of forgiveness is like that single drop of water. It may feel small, private, and insignificant, but its effects, the peace it brings to your own heart, the calm energy you radiate to your family, the non-reactive space you offer to your friends and colleagues, the kindness you show to a stranger, these effects ripple outward in ways you can never fully see or measure, touching countless lives, contributing to the healing of the whole. This is how a single, quiet heart can change the world. You have now walked the path from a single burning coal to a single drop of water, creating waves of peace that have no end. We began this journey together with the image of a burning coal held tightly in the hand, a perfect symbol of the pain we carry, believing its purpose is to be thrown at another. We have walked a long and sometimes difficult path to understand the nature of that coal and the nature of the hand that holds it. We have seen that the fires of our suffering are fueled by the poisons of our own mind. We have learned that the law of karma is not a tool for revenge, but a simple mirror for our own intentions. We journeyed into the heart of wisdom, seeing that the self we seek to protect is as fluid and changing as a river, and that the events we cling to are as empty of inherent meaning as a blank screen. We learn to be the sky, not the cloud, to tend to our own inner garden, and to light our own candle of loving kindness, first for ourselves and then for others. We saw that the precious gem of peace we were searching for has been in our own pocket all along. We have made the journey from being the prisoner of our past to becoming the architect of our present peace. And so we arrive here, at the end of our time together, with one essential truth shining more brightly than all others. Forgiveness is not something you do for someone else, it is something you are for yourself. It is not an act of forgetting a terrible past. It is the act of remembering a beautiful and indestructible truth, the truth of your own innate capacity for peace, a capacity that can never be taken from you, no matter how deep the wound. Peace is not a distant destination you arrive at after you have finally won the argument with reality. It is not contingent upon an apology. It is not the result of justice being served. It is a state of being. It is an internal sanctuary that has been waiting patiently for you to come home. The key to that home has always been in your possession. This entire journey has simply been about helping you to recognize it, to pick it up, and to learn how to turn it in the lock. From this moment forward, you can walk through the world with a lighter step. You can meet the unfolding of your life, not with the clenched fist of resistance, but with the open hand of acceptance. You can see the world, not through the dark and smoky lens of your old grievance, but with the clear, bright eyes of the peace you have discovered within. You do not need to fight with your thoughts anymore. You do not need to wrestle with your past. All that is required is to rest in the awareness that you are, and have always been, whole, complete, and free. Take a deep breath, and begin.